game, same for the team.
The game is yours to play now.
The light provides.
This is Eventide Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Eventide Radio. This is a fan-made Destiny podcast where we have roundtable discussions about a variety of different topics concerning the popular video game franchise. Today we have a lot to talk about because this is our first episode after Final Shape has just dropped. So there is loads to talk about. There's a new campaign, there's a new raid, there's a new season as well. There's all sorts of stuff. And we all have lots of thoughts on it. I think I speak for everyone when I say it's really good, though. I could put that out right off the bat. And I don't even know where to start. I feel like it's a stupid question to start off like
we should probably do a spoiler warning for some reason if people...
spoiler warning. Although it's been out for 2 weeks, so like...
Why are you here?
Screw you if you haven't finished it, so...
Yes, if for some reason you're listening to this and you haven't completed the story, obviously... spoilers ahead for the Final Shape and its subsequent post-game.
And
also,
secondly, go finish it like right now.
Yes, it's really good. So please
watch this after you finish it. But for the love of God, like
just finish it, man. It's been 2 weeks, dude. You gotta do it. This is important. This is really important,
and it's pretty stinking good. So
it's phenomenal.
It's probably the most important expansion for the game since like Forsaken.
I think it's the best expansion, the best campaign, but we'll get into that. One other thing I want to put out just before we get into this and we start talking about the campaign and the expansion and everything, just a quick disclaimer because it might, affect my perception of the game. I did get it for free with my plug at Bungie, so
I nearly did.
You nearly did, but Nap's in the UK, which sucks because he didn't have UK codes.
I have a US code for it.
Yeah, Rob fanboyed too close to the sun right as
so that I could get this
dropped, and he got the tower and all the cool pre-order.
That would have been a great lead into a VPN sponsor.
If only we had that. But
I would just want your information getting stolen on the internet. Then look no further than Destiny
of not being able to use the code for the free version of the Final Shape that you were given.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to put that out there because free food always tastes better when it's free. You know what I mean? So like,
and Duncan, if you're watching, you have good coffee. Sponsor.
Hell yeah, they do. I agree.
I mean,
I actually don't like.
Sugar. It's all sugar.
If I got it for free, I'd disclose that, but I wouldn't treat it any differently. I think.
My opinion, right? I mean, I thought it was really good, and I just want to make it clear that I didn't have to pay $60 for it or whatever.
I mean, the money I spend on Destiny expansions, I pretend I didn't spend.
Don't exist, because you're going to buy it anyway.
Because I was going to buy it anyway.
But I think you are obligated. I mean, this isn't sponsored, but I think you are technically obligated by SEC to disclose that if you got a review copy, not that that's what this was.
It's not a review copy, but
Steam, you have to do that, don't you? Like it says if you got the product for free. I'm not sure if any other place does.
So, but
it's a good idea. But
Matt and I both paid for it like chumps, and then Scotty pulled some strings and. But.
One strings were pulled up and then they were let go at the top.
Right. So thank you for throwing that disclaimer out, Scotty. I appreciate it.
Yes, of course.
I think you got a free copy of Witch Queen as well, right?
I did.
Yeah, and we did disclose it then as well. So
yes. And also I'm not gonna he's super awesome guy. I'm not gonna drop his name just because I don't know if that's something he wants out there. But he was an employee at Bungie. He's super cool. The people there are super cool.
Yeah. Well, I imagine they just get review copies for
they do, and they hand
friends
them out
and family, right? Like they're because it's all like you're still engaging and playing the game and all that stuff, right? So it's
I imagine that's how people do the giveaway. Like people do giveaway. Certain people would buy it themselves, but certain people
for sure.
And we're advertising the game effectively by doing this as well. So it's like everyone wins. Yeah, exactly. Everyone wins.
So normally I would start the episode off by saying, "What did you guys do this week in Destiny?" But that's kind of a redundant question because I think we all are playing the shit out of this expansion. So what have we not been doing in Destiny? I think is a is a better question. But
Gambit?
I've been playing Gambit.
I played one.
We have to for pathways potentially.
Oh, you don't.
I have gotten a pathway where both nodes were a
it's
Gambit.
actually called Pathfinder
or Pathfinder. Yeah, whatever. So there was one where I had to do like it was Gambit was inevitable. It was the final shape, so to speak. So,
bummer.
Yeah, it's all right.
Should we talk about like the day one experience and then
let's kind of
So I got quite lucky, and I got in about half hour in, I think it was, to when they fixed the issues, because I know didn't they take longer to put the game out anyway? Or
they had to extend their server maintenance time by a couple hours.
And I got in like fairly, like I didn't get kicked. I'd have moments where I was sitting there thinking, I'm gonna get kicked. But I got in and everyone else didn't, or they barely got to do the first mission and were then being kicked.
Right.
And I got up to the where you find Zavala's house.
Right.
Yep. Sorry. I got up to there and got kicked at the end of that, came back in, and I didn't see the cutscene of round the fire or him talking to his wife. I didn't know I'd missed it though. But I was like, I don't want to risk getting kicked again. I'll leave it. And then the next day it was fine. Like I know some people had server issues then on from the next few days, but I didn't have anything past day one. Like
yeah, me too. I think it was just day one for me. I played first two missions. I missed the Cade cutscene where you meet him for the first time.
Who throws the harmonica at you?
Yes, yeah, I missed that, and I was because you right after that mission, because I beat the first mission and then I got kicked, and then the next quest step was go meet an old friend at the campfire, and I go to the campfire speaker place or whatever, and I go there, and Kate's like, I know I said it before, but it's great to see you. And I'm like, whoa, hold on,
what are you talking about?
I knew you were coming back, but I feel like I missed something here.
Yeah,
and so I guess I missed the cutscene.
The marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got home from work a little bit early that day. So when I jumped on, the servers were quote unquote fixed. So I was able to do the first mission, see that cutscene, and then I got to the next mission where you have to reunite with Crow, and then I was like, okay, and then I turned it off for a while and had dinner with my wife and did responsible adult things, and then for the rest of the night I was like, I'm gonna finish this. And then that's when all the current errors, I think, is what the one that everyone was getting. Yeah. And I started streaming that night, and I just kept getting booted to orbit. So I turned the stream off because I was getting frustrated, and I was being very not a good person online right then and there. And so I was like, all right, so I'm not going to stream, and I'm just going to see if I can play this. And it was one of those where I could load into the Pale Heart, and then immediately I would get an error, or I'd try to start the mission would load and then kick me to orbit. So I was part of kind of that group, and I went online to see, and it was all the big streamers were yeah, this is a known issue, and they were tweeting, and they're like, we might have a fix within an hour. And then about half hour after that, they were like, we're just going to hard reset all the servers, so that should fix it. And then I didn't really have any problems the rest of the night, and I powered through the campaign, and I think I went to bed at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
But I wanted to finish it that night, and I wonder if that if I was maybe not in the best speed, I probably should have called it and not powered through, because I think that it kind of hindered my interpretation of sort of my initial thoughts of it. But afterward, I don't think it did. I obviously I enjoyed it. I think we'll talk about that more. But that was my experiences. I was kind of part of that group where we were all getting current errored and couldn't even start the second mission. And then finally when it went, I jumped in, and I think once I saw a contacting Destiny servers bar at the bottom. But other than that, I had a pretty clean run the rest of the night, and I don't think I missed any cutscenes. But I'm going through the campaign again now with my hunter to and I'm going kind of a lot slower now and taking it in. So
Yeah, I kind of spread my experience out over a couple days because I mean, I like taking my time with these things and just like I've never played a Destiny campaign where I was like more inclined to take a screenshot of like everything I saw.
Yeah.
Like there's
so many screenshots.
They're so cool. I mean, there are so many awesome set pieces and like beautiful moments where I'm just like, oh my god, this is gorgeous. I have to take a picture of this. And I mean, there are so many cool like, you know, images that they throw, just visuals, like Zavala's house with like the witness smoke pouring out the
That's
chimneys.
my favorite thing. I think that is one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
I wish it was still there. I know why it's not, but I wish you could go back and see it.
And see it again. Yeah. It was so cool.
That, that area is called the seclusion, right? Where you're kind of in this like
I think
green,
so, yeah.
open field. Yeah, like I mean, we can gush more about this too, but like, yeah, some of those set pieces were just, I mean, like it's cliche, genuinely like out of this world. Like,
yes.
Yeah, and it was quite the experience going from location to location where you're just like, yeah, that's why I was up till 3 a.m. because I always have like buddies that are like, oh, let's play the campaign, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna do this by myself. Like, I'm gonna watch every cutscene. I'm not gonna like because I have a couple buddies that like they'll try to do like a Zavala impression while the cutscene's happening. It's like, shut the fuck up. Like, let me
seriously,
like, let me watch this. Let me take it in. I know this is funny to you, and this is how you like you meme on it, but it's like, this is such an important, like, you're never gonna get that experience again. That
exactly
that first time playing through and like taking in that environment and atmosphere.
I wouldn't do it when I'm doing the campaign for the first time, but any time after, if I hear Zavala or Shax, I'm Little Guardian, you know, straight away.
All right, side question. Just initial thoughts. How did you think Keith David did?
I thought he did great, actually. Personally,
it threw me in the first cutscene,
and a little bit.
I think that was the most he sounded different. Was in the first cutscene, and maybe it was the first thing he recorded.
Maybe.
By the end, I was more used to it.
Yeah.
And I was happy. There were some lines he did where I'm like, that sounded like Lance, like that.
Right.
The only thing that I was like, that's such a shame, is that he didn't get to do, that Lance didn't get to do the speech in the final.
I know.
Yeah. And I have watched that cutscene so many times. It was a really cool cutscene. The music in it is great, and his performance is really good. And it's not to bash Keith at all. It's a really good performance, and he's done a really good job. But it's just like this thing. It's like, it's not Lance. He didn't get to do it, and that is a shame.
Yeah, I mean, that being said, though, like, I mean, the fact that it's not Lance, like, accepting
it's
that,
the next best. Yeah,
this is the next best thing. I think he did a really good job. I think Keith David's very talented, and I thought he kind of killed it. Like, especially like in those like important character moments where he's, you know, going to the darkness and everything, and Targe dying, and him just like battling with his own demons and being pissed at Ikora and stuff like that. Like, I thought he nailed all of those.
Yeah, it's almost like it almost works like from because it is noticeably different. You're right, and you're right. That first line of dialogue where you're like, oh, that's right. This is like, it threw me off, and then you kind of get used to it. And I think he did a phenomenal job. I'll preface with that. But it almost like works that his voice is different because
he's a different person.
He's a different person, and like it almost feels like the moment he gets into the Pale Heart, like that it like changes him, and like his like it's almost like it's straining his voice and like affecting him like physically, and so like it kind of like, I guess like in my head canon, like it almost works that it's a different voice actor, and I was okay with it. Like once I got over that initial like, oh, it's like, but it's like the same time, like no different than when we transitioned to Peter Dinklage to Nolan North, right? That first time you hear it, you're like, oh, this is so weird. But it's like you're okay with it because
I didn't care that much.
Because Peter Dinklage was terrible.
There's a few voice lines where his voice and tone works, but the rest of it is bad. And he didn't have anything to say in Dark Below or House of Wolves. He didn't say anything then.
Right.
So it's like he was only talking for the D1 vanilla campaign, and then that was it. So it wasn't like he's always saying things.
But, yeah. It wasn't like a character you've known for 10 years.
After a year though, you still got used to his voice, right? Every time
some people still prefer the old one. And I'm like, okay.
I'm not saying I prefer Peter Dinklage, but it is just that first day. I remember like going through something, and you're like, "Oh my god, this isn't Peter Dinklage!" Like it just threw me off.
Him doing the dialogue that Ghost has in this expansion, or
I know,
or like him doing the Remembrance, the cutscene at the start of the Taken King, the most bland, thing ever. Like, it wouldn't. Yeah. It wouldn't work.
No, I'm just talking about the how like jarring it was. Like I completely secede.
We've had replacements for all 3 Vanguard leaders now.
Yeah. It is kind of weird, and it's unfortunate that like this is the first time they've been reunited, and it's like we got
different people.
I'm
Nathan Fillion.
Yeah, we got Nathan Fillion back, but then we don't have the other 2, which is kind of a bummer.
But
I'm wondering if they got Nathan Fillion to record the Forsaken voice lines, so that if we ever get that back in the game, we get him doing that. Because
I would not mind that.
To bash Nolan North's impression of him.
He did a good job. Yeah.
But it would be nice to have Nathan Fillion as Cade in those missions if we ever got them back.
Did Nathan Fillion do vanilla D2 dialogue, or was that Nolan North as well?
No, it was Nathan. It was only Forsaken that they couldn't get him.
Okay, so which is like such a short, right? It was basically like a cutscene and some like when you do the Ace of Spades mission where you get all those like recordings where it's like his eulogy basically, or okay, yeah, I couldn't. I'm not trying to like, oh well, we can't play the campaign anymore, but like I genuinely don't remember because I don't know the last time I've heard like any of those dialogue lines. So yeah, I can't remember. So okay, but yeah. I think Keith David did a great job. I was just kind of like wondering what your guys' thoughts were, because it was like it worked for me. It was just that first line of dialogue. We're like, oh, okay, wow, we're going here. But then it slowly kind of warped and evolved. And
I think their performances for all of the characters were a lot better.
Yes,
I think Nathan Fillion in particular. I really liked his performances, Cade. Like from like the get go, you can already tell just by his performance that like he's back to life and he's like totally changed. Like he's still Cade, but like he wants to go back to being dead before he even like confesses that. You already know just by the inflection in his voice. He's like,
it was I want to go back to balance between D1 and D2 Cade.
Yeah,
yeah, and I think it worked. It
totally,
because like, and these characters, like, the simple thing is like, well, I want him how he was in Taken King, but it's like, but as a character, he's evolved so much. And there's even a line of dialogue where I think it's in the campaign, but maybe it's like the post campaign. Maybe it's in one of the strikes that they did the voiceover recording, where it's like Cade is like, normally I'm the one like being fathered by Zavala, but I never thought I'd have to be the one who's like looking after him or kind of like disciplining him or whatever like that. Where it's just like, all these characters have grown so much in 10 years, and it's like it feels organic and natural, and I think they did a good job of kind of like, I don't know, like it all worked. Like none of it felt like contrived, and like, and they've been like building up to Zavala kind of like going off the deep end, and I think this was like an appropriate reaction to all of that. Like, you saw it back in, was that season of The Haunted, where you find out about his wife and son that have died, and sort of the guilt that he lives with that, and so this kind of made sense that we would eventually kind of like, he would have to deal with that in a very emotionally straining situation, and this is like the most emotionally straining. So I think it worked.
Totally.
Quick question: Keitel Zavala. What we doing there?
I don't know what the anatomy physiology of that is, but like I'm all for it. Like
make it weird. She does flirt with him. She's like, let us celebrate in like that would offend our ancestors. Essentially, is something along the lines of that.
Yeah. Well, there's a great. So if you do the Overthrow, like I call them campaigns, but like the little mini activities that you do while in patrol, which I think are great. We'll talk about Pale Heart later. You get like different dialogue whenever you complete like a wave.
Yeah.
And one of them that I got recently was Keitel's kind of like hanging out with you while you're doing these overthrows, like she's talking and Zavala's there, and she is talking about getting revenge on like the Hive and going back to Tora Bottle and all that stuff, which we can also talk about in the Frontiers leak, or not leak but reveal. But like there's a part where Zavala's kind of like talking with her, like why do you want this so bad? Like why do you want to go back to Tora Bottle and reclaim it when like you've got like you're here, you're with in our universe or our galaxy, and we care about you. Like we're cool with you staying, and if you want to call this home, like this should be home to you. Like why are you so obsessed with going back to Tora Bottle? And she says something along the lines like it's like pride that's taking me back. And he's like, yeah, but look how many other empresses have had that same argument, and none of them are here, and you're still here. And she's like, yeah, but it's like my homeworld or whatever. And he's like, all right, but I'll fight with you to the very end, and like I'll take it back with you if that's what you want. So you definitely get like sprinklings that their friendship is more than just like a friendship. That's like those overthrows are really cool just for the sake of like every time you complete one, you get some kind of neat exchange between like Mara and Savathun and Keitel and Zavala and Micah.
She's like, oh, you're still listening on the and she's like, oh, you caught me. I was
exactly, yeah. And I love that like Savathun's like, you know, whether or not you want to admit it, like I was, you know, part and instrumental in this all happening and being able to like do this. And Mara's like, I'm gonna make sure that the history books like don't give you credit or something like that.
Yeah,
like,
I remember that
cool,
one.
Yeah, it's cool stuff like that. So
what about the Witness? How are we feeling as a character?
I think he's great.
Yeah.
Or it's great. Or however you want to refer to it.
I accept the he because it's voiced by I've forgotten the guy's name, but
yeah, I was gonna say it's got the guy's voice usually takes precedence over.
By the end, it's definitely just an I.
There is only suffering.
Yeah, it's like one dude's like really pissed because he just killed all the other ones.
Yeah, right. I think I like him, the Witness, shouting, but I would have preferred. I get that, you know, in the raid he's huge and he's in that weird form, but I prefer the normal voice for the Witness. I don't have a problem with the big, deeper, booming voice, but I feel like it was more cliche than the other. Than the other sort of the more calm.
It makes sense though, because you are getting rid of the voices.
Yeah,
you know,
right?
Yeah. You hear less of the other voices in the. I love that. You know, every time there's like a pause in between each thing that they say,
right?
And you hear the
other voices.
Yeah, and it's just that break in between each like line of dialogue is really cool because you think, oh, what the fuck he's gonna say.
Yeah, no, and that you know, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. The thing that I was worried about is like, how is this all gonna work and actually like be somewhat believable? I mean, ultimately it's like zombies with space magic, so it doesn't necessarily have to be ultra believable, but I do fundamentally like the sort of the fall of the Witness and sort of like how we got to that point. Like I thought it was going to be super like contrived or something like that, but ultimately all of it kind of like made sense and was kind of cool that it's like, here it is, all these different, basically you're casting doubt, and that's like the ultimate downfall, right? Is you're just kind of twisting the knife just enough to get all these selves of the Witness all to kind of just like split apart, and like that ultimately like that part when you're doing the final mission in the campaign and you start breaking the statues and they're like, some of them are relieved because it's like, God, get me out of here, you know? And it's like, that's cool. And that works. And it like, I think it was Map. I think it was you that was like, the power of friendship is what's going to stop him. And it was like, God damn it, you were kind of right. Like,
I had a feeling, we would.
But it didn't feel cliche. Like,
no, totally.
No, it worked.
Like, and I like the whole revelation that all of these veiled statues are like, they're like dissenters of the Witness, like all the ones that have like they've also they
disagree.
Right, they disagree, and ultimately that's why they've been there, because they've all been trying to like kind of help us, like show us all these things and educate us on the Witness, is ultimately like eventually this will all come into play and help us defeat. So like I thought that was kind of cool, like because those veiled statues have been in like concept art from the beginning, and maybe that was not the original intent of what those statues were going to be, but I think it was like, again, all of these things leading up to this, like planting all of those seeds all along, and it kind of felt like it paid off to something, and
100%,
and it worked like in a pretty awesome way.
I think we've got more lore revelations and sort of like bombshells in this than we have in Witch Queen. I know the big bombshell in Witch Queen was obviously the Traveler giving the light to the Hive, but we sort of knew. I mean, the Travelers helped other species as well, but obviously the Witness tricked the Proto-Hive into, they were about to receive the light. And there's, I'd say, like, maybe 2-3 big bombshells in this expansion that have, like, topped that.
Yeah,
anyway.
Sure. Well, they're not, like, major, like, plot twists, but more like plot, like, developments.
Yeah.
Just, like, huge, like, we're going to explain the veiled statues and stuff like that, which is huge. I thought it was so cool. I think the Witness as a character is really interesting. I love the fact that he's made up of like dissenters and everything, and like you were saying, I think that's a really satisfying way to take him down. What was made can be unmade.
It makes sense. A whole race aren't going to agree.
Yeah, exactly.
On that.
Well, and you even have
pretty cool.
If you read the Entelechy lore book that comes with the collector's edition, you get you kind of get a backstory on the what do they call them, the progenitors or whatever the hell their initial race is called, right? Like, and you have these like subgroups where they're almost like religious sects. Yeah, thank you. But not all of them agree, and you kind of even get from the lore book, you get a sense that maybe not all of them joined, and that there might be some out there still. Maybe they're still alive or what have you, but like it's kind of neat that like you start seeing all these holes in this villain that like they're not the ultimate baddie in that sense, and that
we kind of got that reveal as well too. Yeah.
Well, and that's the other cool thing too, is during the raid you get a dialogue from the Witness where he's like, just so we're clear, I'm not the winnower. Like, he's like, I'm just the first knife, which is like that huge like controversy with the Unveiling lore book, which I've always kind of thought was like, because there was that interview that came out shortly after Nightfall where they're like, there's the one guy who's like, oh, welcome to the problem that all like biblical scholars have always like dealt with. And it's like, if you know anything about biblical history, like if you grew up in any kind of religious background, that like any religion, there's different radical groups, or not radical groups, maybe that's a harsh way of saying it, but there's different groups that all interpret biblical texts vastly differently. And like, was it literally 7 days of creation, or was it over a period of time that it's like all those things. And it's like, that's what I've always thought the Unveiling lore book was like a distorted interpretation or perspective of the origin story of like light and dark, and how
it's like the books of sorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Except for in that, you literally get the end where Savathun's like, yeah, I wouldn't believe everything that's in here, right? So it's like, right. But it's like, I've always kind of liked that idea that the Unveiling lore book is just sort of this one interpretation or perspective of it, and that like, I've never thought that the Witness was the winnower. Like especially once you got the Nightfall reveal cutscene, that like it was just the first, it was kind of the kickoff of the modified flower game that the winnower and the gardener. Now is the Traveler the gardener? I think that's a fun question that can be started to
I think it's a stand-in, but not the actual.
Right. It might be. Right. It's the two pieces that were kind of created for this game.
The character that the gardener is playing as.
Right. Yeah. The avatar, if you will.
Yeah.
So yeah. So all of those kind of things I think were great. Like, as you put it, like bombshell revelations that were all kind of fun to finally get some like, not closure on, because now I think we have more questions, but I think that's great because, as everyone, well, not everyone, there's a lot of people that naively thought like, oh, this is going to be the end of Destiny Saga. It's like, no, this is like, you literally open the doors for so many more things. And as we saw with the reveal on Tuesday, like, they're not done anytime soon. And like, this just makes
stupid not to. I mean, money wise, it would be dumb
exactly.
Not to.
And that's like the fundamental thing where it's like, they don't have another project coming down the pipeline anytime soon. And I think it's been pretty clear that like, they didn't think Marathon was going to be the replacement for Destiny, right? It's not like Halo, when Reach came out, like literally in the credits, they're like, "Thanks for playing this. We're ready to move on to something else now." Like they've never done any kind of vocal thing like that about the Destiny franchise. So like I have no fear. They've got stories for years. Like this isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So
wonderful.
Yeah, I didn't come up with this, like a Simpsons thing. So there's a really cheesy clip show episode that they do, and then at the end they're like, "Yeah, we know we put a clip show together. Don't worry, we got more stuff." And that was like season 12, and now they're on season 35.
Oh my god, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. We don't need to talk about Simpsons.
I want more of the Witness, but I know if we got more of, I mean, dead, but I mean in the sense of I want more story of them.
Right.
But I like listening to the Witness talk. So unless we get more of those raw, like those memory imprint voices that we had,
right, which are pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like
the one with Sabathun and the Witness talking. And yeah, that's a good one.
I'd like things like that because I like hearing stuff. I feel like we just got to know the Witness.
Right.
It's not a complaint. It's just like I would like more, but I get why people don't want more. And obviously, I'm not saying bring back the Witness. Like fucking, he's back from the dead. The Traveler resurrected him.
Made him a light bearer too. No, I don't think they're going to do anything like that. But I agree with you. I get the feeling though, like because it kind of seems like. So what's the next expansion that they called Frontiers? Right? Is that the code name? Right, so it seems like everyone's kind of concluded, like, okay, we're probably going to leave the Sol system and go outbound and try to maybe go to Torabottle and all. Like they're kind of sprinkling all these little like hints at where they might go. I get the feeling because like one of the first things you do when you encounter one of the first enemies in the that are part of the Dread, like one of the things that the ghost says is like, oh, it's probably another group that the Witness like enslaved, right? So I get the feeling we could go to these alien planets and start meeting other groups of aliens that have been, destroyed in the wake of the Witness, and ultimately, like, so I get the feeling like you might come across, like, I don't think we're going to be completely done with the Witness, or at least kind of like the fallout of what this entity has left in the universe as a result of.
Bife was saying that that he thinks that what the Winnower wanted was darkness in the Traveler.
Right.
And the Witness achieved that. That wasn't, the final shape that the Witness was doing was different to the final shape that the Winnower wants.
Right.
But he was speculating that the Winnower still got what it wanted because the Witness introduced darkness into the Traveler.
Right.
And now we've got echoes or whatever they are coming out.
Right. I like that they use the term cyst because it really does feel like the darkness is like a cancer that's been, and that could be another interesting thing that you do, right? Where it's like maybe it's too far ingrained and like we're kind of like cleaning it up, but it might just be one of those where like now that it's permanently in there, like it'll continue it'll continue to manifest and
we have darkness, we're not using it,
Right, exactly. So yeah, all of these things are like cool and interesting where it's like, okay, now that you've introduced this like idea, where do you go with it and what can you do with it? And I'm excited to see what the ramifications are. And yeah, that's the whole thing. Like after Excision, that first time, you see those 3 echoes get cast out, and it's like the explanation is like when the light and dark collided, it created this like omega dark energy, or not dark energy, it was just energy that like got cast out, and like that obviously led into like what the episodes are going to be, but it also is kind of in a cool way to like, again, what the fallout of these actions are and what the consequences are, and how it's like, and of course, like Crow said the cliche thing of like, well, now there's a power vacuum and everyone's vying for power. It's like, and of course, like you were going to see something like that. That happened even in the Taken King, right? When Oryx was defeated, there was immediately a small group of his minions trying to take over.
Oh, that Taken Knight.
Yeah, he's got a goofy name.
With a weird thighs.
No.
Me and my friend used to take the piss because in the strike he'd run around and he looked like he'd been doing leg day non-stop.
I know. Yeah, he's got beefy legs. I'm pulling up his helmet right now. It's gonna bother me.
It's not Malak, is it?
Yeah, it's Hood of Malak. Yeah.
Yeah.
Malak, Malak, whatever.
Yeah, Grasp of Malok or Malok.
Yeah.
So going back to this kind of odd topic, but part of why the campaign works, right, is that those major plot developments and all that cool stuff. But I think the most important thing that they did with making this campaign work is that they went back to basics, in the sense that they put together basically 4 of their most well-developed characters and contained the whole campaign within those four characters. They focused on character moments as opposed to anything else, right? It was all about them, and there's big, emotional moments between them, and talking about how they develop and everything. I thought they did all of that really, really well. They all have like really interesting character arcs, except maybe Ikora is probably the least interesting, but they all kind of have.
She's already sort of gone through hers, though, hasn't she?
Yeah. And she works as like a foil to other characters, so it's not like a complaint necessarily. But like Cade has
the
his
normal out of the
most stable at this point. Yeah.
She's sort of like us in a sense of we're not going through like we're reliving, seeing people go through shit, but she herself isn't dealing with she's just dealing with the end of the world. That's it. There's no past trauma coming out.
There's got to be someone like that, right? But like their dynamic and just all of their character arcs, they all have individual, satisfying, like believable character arcs over the course of the campaign that you're like emotionally invested in. And I thought they did a really good job of that. Crow is a great inclusion. And I think it's, normally I would complain about like previous expansions. I hate when they like, it's like Lightfall, for example. And it's like, oh, this is like the penultimate thing. Except we're only going to talk about Osiris as far as like the only. It's like, okay, well, what about like everybody else? Right. But I think they did a good job. I think it was a smart move to keep it to Zavala, Ikora, Cade, and Crow for the most part. Just from an emotional standpoint, because I feel like if they threw too many other characters in there and too many other stories, it would, nullify.
We got a little bit of Mara.
We got a little bit, just enough of Mara, I think.
Yeah, we got some other characters in the post campaign. We got Mike-10.
That's exactly where they belong, right? It's in the post campaign, like Savathun and all that stuff. It's really cool, but like, I agree. I think they divvy that up quite well.
Well, I think you bring up a good point too, because like you get a little bit of that too in the Witch Queen campaign, where like you focus, but like because it really should be focusing on the Vanguard at this point and like the Vanguard leaders, because I think everyone's kind of looking to them as like resolving this problem and finding the solution. And so it's like with Witch Queen, like you had Ikora, and that was maybe more Ikora's time to shine, as she was more focusing on all of those events, but ultimately there was stuff where Zavala was getting involved, and he's like, man, I hope I know what you're doing, and all of that. So it kind of worked there. But yeah, I think Lightfall focusing on Osiris, and like it also kind of sucks because like, not to bag on Lightfall, I think everyone's kind of done that enough. Like let's just kind of move on from it. But like you have that opening cutscene where they put the blast shield down on the helm, and then the final cutscene where they lift it up, and then like the witness has gone through it. It's like they literally like, were you just standing there this for like 4 hours while this was going down? Like, just like that kind of stuff. Where it's like, we don't have anything for them to do, so they're just going to not do anything. Whereas at least with this, like, it felt like there was, Mara's on the other side. She's trying to keep the portal open while you're getting through. And with this, it also kind of makes a little more sense that you like lose communication with them. And like, there's nothing they can do. And finally, like, in the final level or the final campaign mission, like she does just say screw it, and we're all there to support, and they help you get out of there at least. Whereas like and on Lightfall, like at a certain point, shouldn't you have, because that's like, we're gonna make some other comparisons to the MCU soon enough, but like that's like kind of the same thing that like bothered me. Like Captain America Winter Soldier is a good movie and I like it, but there's like parts in it where it's like, man, they probably should have called Tony Stark to like get some assistance here. It's like at a certain point it like takes you out of it, because you're like, there's this other bigger universe and a larger group where it's like, man, you really could have used their help by now. And I feel like Lightfall was another instance of that.
Totally.
World-ending, universe-threatening things if there are not other people involved. And it does take, there are other shows that have done that, and they do get the people involved. And if they didn't, it's kind of like, why.
Right.
And I don't like the MCU. I've seen a decent amount of films, but I don't enjoy it. But this didn't feel like that.
No, and I'm not saying that it did.
No,
I
was
like,
worried that it might. I was worried that it might, and I know people might pull comparison in the Zavala speech, and it's like, but the amount of films that have a final battle with someone giving a speech before, you can't coin that on just one film. Like, that's just media,
right? But I think you can't help but make it, because one of the developers made some comparison. They called Nightfall
Infinity War,
right? Exactly. And so I think, and that was kind of the first thing that I thought when I watched that Excision cutscene, where it's like, okay, we're getting the speech and rallied up, and like all the Avengers are assembled. But you're absolutely right. Like, how many you could say it's the same thing as shit. What's the one with William Wallace? Braveheart, right? There's like the Braveheart speech at the end, right? How many and during the Battle of Helm's Deep and the Battle of Avos Gilead and all, like,
of the human race, there is going to be all right, not universal world ending, right? But people going into
and it's always like the coolest, most like epic, legendary thing anyway. So like you had to do something like that. Like, I'm not mad that he did it. Like I think we've all been waiting for this.
Probably the best cutscene that, other than I think that cutscene and then the one where the witness goes apeshit, are probably the two best cutscenes from it.
Oh, at the end where you wound him.
Yeah. There is only suffering.
It's scary. Okay, all right. Sorry, I'm gonna switch gears again because you brought up that cutscene. With the witness's design, I was one of those people that was like not a huge fan of it when it was revealed, but I'm like all in now. I think it's really, really cool, and I was genuinely scared of it.
One of my favorite designs
it's intimidating.
When it first came out, everyone was like, "Well, he looks like Megamind." I was like, "No, but he looks alien. He doesn't look like anything else in the game, which is good."
It's like an uncanny valley thing.
Yeah, he sticks out like a sore thumb in a good way, not in a there's a fucking Pixar character on the screen in Destiny. There's Woody. No, he just looks so. I mean, I've got my wallpaper is that thing I sent of Excision, and it's his face, and it just doesn't fit. Like, all the enemy races in Destiny look very alien, and he looks more stereotypically alien. But it fits. The character design is great.
Right.
I think so too.
My perspective definitely kind of changed on him as we went through the campaign, because it also like showed that he's like a flawed character, because you didn't really get enough of him prior to this. Like, you just get these little snippets here and there. But yeah, I agree. Like, the design almost kind of works because he is like, it is so alien and so bizarre, and like it feels like it doesn't fit in Destiny, but like it feels like now in hindsight, like that's like the point.
Because it's somebody from way far out in
wherever
the universe or whatever.
Right. I still think he looks a little. I wish his face was a little not as like big eyes, but like that. Like, that's like the only thing. Everything else about him is so like.
I like it when he frowns.
Yeah.
When he looks mad.
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite cutscenes, say like in Lightfall, is when he talks to Callus, and he freaks him out, and he's like, "You have no purpose because you fear deceit." One, like, I love that line. I like him talking down.
I saw someone say, I forget who this was, so sorry, I won't credit the person who had this, but when he like makes Callus like bleed.
Oh, he goes into that big,
and he turns into you could assume that's his like raid form that he turns into when he freaks Callus out. But that was kind of cool.
Yeah, the raid form was definitely badass too. Like that.
I thought it was too. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah,
like that was the white mechanic. The white mechanic is so cool.
Oh, where he does like the hand blast thing. Yeah. That's pretty neat. Like, and we were also, that was another one of the things that I was talking about, where I'm like, his all endingness, it kind of is stupid because he can just snap your hands and like you get all like cut up or whatever. But yeah, exactly.
Well,
and
there were people giving reason as to why lore wise he can't do that.
Right. But, in the Pale Heart, it makes sense because it's like he's right. Like, not even this reality. This whole thing is like, he's literally doing all of his putting all of his energy and effort into like finally enacting this, and it also kind of works because the campaign is basically this like unending onslaught of just like bosses that he throws at you, because it's like this is literally like his final like group of his last line of defense to stop you while he's trying to enact the final shape. So it kind of makes,
it's like you're downloading a game, running a game, and then you've opened Task Manager.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
totally.
And
you're downloading Destiny, playing Destiny, and then you've opened Task Manager.
38 Chrome tabs open. Like,
you've opened Task Manager, and you're on Spotify.
Yeah. I do kind of wish that, like, you know, and it ultimately doesn't matter, but like when Tarj sacrifices itself, I would have loved if that was like the first moment where you like just a little hint that like the witness was like slightly wounded.
But you do get that.
What do you?
Yeah. So when he holds Tarj in his hand
and it like explodes,
he lets right before that he grabs him and then opens his hand again, and Tarj is there and says, "Oh, you have fear." His fingers start turning into smoke. They're not hard.
Oh, I missed that. Okay,
yeah, his fingers start turning into smoke because of the light that Tarj has. If you go back and watch it,
that's cool.
He crushes him.
Okay.
So speaking of ghosts,
cool. I do like
Ghost and the Witness, though. Remember in Nightfall when like the Witness could just like possess your ghost for like FaceTime calls and stuff? What happened to that? Did he
kicks him out? He tries to do that at the start of the campaign.
Oh,
that's why your ghost is all shattered.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Speaking of that cutscene, because I just watched it again yesterday. That first cutscene when you get into the Pale Heart and you have like,
it's so cool.
It's so
well made.
It's so fucking weird, but it's so good. When you see like the grass is growing and then it like dies and shrivels up, and then like
the vision thing.
It's so good,
like, and it takes over the feather, and it's so. Yes. Yeah, and the hawk is like slowly getting like taken by the darkness, and it's upsetting.
Oh, there's so much in
it's
there.
all symbolic.
It's so good. It's so good.
Stuff.
And then you get the astronaut. You see the astronaut, and it's like wielding all the different
stranded stasis and stuff. You're like, oh.
Yeah, and then it turns prismatic, and then you realize like, oh, that's like you, and it's supposed to be.
That's
this, like,
the end game.
Yeah, everything kind of feels like an LSD trip. Like how I imagine this going down is someone at Bungie took a bunch of LSD and then went to like an MC Escher like like thing at a museum where it was just nothing, you know,
they went to an MC Escher museum, and there was a big tour guide there, and they all started getting sad, and and that's where
like
all the sad faces in the walls.
Yeah, it's so trippy. And then like when you first get into the Pale Heart, and there's that part where you're like diving down into the cave. And like the architecture is changing around you as you're like, so you're like, oh, here's a path. But then as you get closer, like the tree's covered up and then like another one's revealed. Like it's so well done just from like it totally sets the stage up perfectly for like what you are going to go through for the next few hours.
At some point I want to have like we'll have to deep dive into what is the best. I'm shoehorning music in again, but I want to do what is the best soundtrack in the whole of the 10 years.
Right.
We'll do that at some point in a future thing.
Yeah.
But the musical cue that plays when you first walk out of the cave into the Pale Heart is so good.
Right.
That was John Williams level, like whimsy musical cue. It's so good.
Yeah. The music in general is great because it goes back, it goes back to all these like tracks and remixes them in weird ways.
I made a meme and it was like, the final shape so OST good. Slaps Roof can fit so many motifs.
Yeah. But it does it so like, and it does it in a tasteful way, not like in a cliche like nostalgic way, like when you first get into the original like Vanguard control room where you like get prismatic for the first time, and like it plays the one track while you like kind of look out to where you are, and you're like, okay, this is something weird's going on in here, and it just everything's done so well, and it's.
I mean, I was begging and hoping that they'd bring back the discipline motif from Lightfall, and they did. Yeah. I was very happy with that.
Going back to the architecture, just because there's something I want to mention. I think it's cool. because the pale art is mixed with like, light and dark and whatever. I love that the witnesses part of the architecture is all made up of like geometric shapes and like edges and all stuff like that. Bunch of rectangles and squares and cubes and whatever. And then, the travelers made up of just like
trees and foliage. Yeah.
That's so cool.
No,
and it's the whole chaos and the order thing that
you transition to it as you go through the campaign so organically that you don't even realize. And like those
you're like, oh shit, all that green stuff's behind me.
You look back and you're like, oh, whoa.
Right. By the time you're in like the last two missions and you're storming the tower, you're like, it's all just hard geometric shapes everywhere.
I like how at certain points in the campaign, when you look around, you can see the portal from that was the entrance.
Oh, it's
like,
so cool. Yeah.
And it gets so far. Like when you first get in, you turn around, it's massive.
Yeah.
I love that the campaign is set as like kind of a Tower of Sauron, go to Mordor kind of like idea of where you like start at the tower and you go all the way to the Witness's monolith. It's like it's a very classic hero's journey kind of thing, and I think it works very well.
Right.
I don't know. There was this thing I noticed, and I don't know if this was on purpose or I'm like, I've smoked something wrong, and I'm sitting there going, but the mountain, the snowy mountain that's like the snow textures and the ice textures change from being the mountain snow that you see on Earth and the Cosmodrome to the ice that you see on Europa. As the further you further you get up the mountain, like when you get to the very top cool. and there's the Vex there, it's the Europa ice. I don't know if they did that just because, or if they intentionally did that.
No, I think that's
totally intentional. That's awesome.
Supposed to go again. It's the idea of like you're supposed to like you start off essentially in the city and slowly like make your way over to like it becomes more and more foreign. And I think that was like that had to have been intentional, right? Where it's like you start on Earth and slowly you're like on Europa where you first discover darkness, right? And like,
and then eventually by the end you're walking up fucking Lego bricks floating in.
Right. And well, I love. Yeah, go for it.
Oh, sorry. Just on the topic of the ice location, that is the place where you find out that Cade was brought to life by Crow's wish. What did you guys think of that little plot development?
I mean, it was in the lore.
Oh, was it?
There's a ship. It's like the ship that you unlock at the very, very end of the season of the Wish, where there's a dialogue conversation happening between Crow and what he thinks is Mara, and she's like, he's like, yeah, I feel so bad, and she's like, oh really? And he's like, yeah, if anything, I wish I could just tell him how sorry I was. And then you like her eyes glow, and you realize that it's been Riven like impersonating her.
I think
so.
It's also one of those things where we knew he was coming back from marketing, so it's a bit
right.
Oh man, I thought that was like a cool thing that happened, and I was like,
if you didn't read that, I mean, yeah, that's what I mean. If you didn't read that, but I didn't read the lore. I didn't read the lore of that ship, but I mean, a lot of people were talking about it, so that's how I heard.
Oh, gotcha.
But obviously, like in your instance, you didn't read it or you didn't hear it. So, but
I thought it was cool.
It works both
yeah, no, and it's. I know when they do stuff like that, I always kind of wonder. It's like, should we not have known that? Like,
yeah, I thought it was cool as someone who didn't read it.
At the same time, too, that could have been a red herring, right? Like, where it's just like, how maybe you're just like, oh, maybe it like manifested in a different way, like not actually Cade coming back, but it's like.
I think it was a mixture between the Wish and the Traveler.
Yeah,
that was sort of how I saw it. Was Riven, obviously, because you see the cutscene where you see like the Riven, the Ahamkara, like tentacle things pull him out like, when he's talking about coming back to life. But I also think part of it was the Traveler, because it's like, how would Riven be able to? I mean, I don't know the extent of their wishes.
Right.
I'm not hugely like or knowledgeable on that part, but
I don't think anyone is.
But I don't know the most about the Ahamkara. But can they grant wishes that involve restoring light? Is that?
Yeah, I'm sure it has something to do with the Traveler, because like Cade says himself, he's like, I'm being held together by light and wishes, or whatever he says.
Right.
Because he's like, obviously at the end of the campaign, he gives his light so Ghost can live.
Yeah.
So
talking about best cutscene, by the way.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. So it's a great cutscene. I'm I guess maybe this is a good topic or conversation point, is like, I didn't think Cade was going to leave the Pale Heart, but I didn't think that he was going to die. Like, I was hoping that I just kind of assumed he was going to be like the vendor, like Nimbus was for Lightfall. Like, I thought he was going to be like, like, hey, I'll stay here. Like, what I envision in my head is that the conversation between Crow and Cade, where he basically is like, you need to be the Hunter Vanguard. Like, I was expecting that, like, they were going to resolve their conflict. But I thought ultimately, like, at the end of the campaign, he'd basically be like, Crow's got things in the real world. I'll stay here and be like the warden of the Pale Heart, and just kind of keep things at bay. And like that kind of, where it's like he doesn't really do anything, but he's still just hanging out in the old tower, and you go talk to him whenever you want to, and he gives you quests and stuff like that. Like, I thought that's how they were going to handle him. Like, you go through the whole effort to get Nathan Fillion back, and then you really have him back for, and maybe that's all that the contract stipulates. Like, I only want to come back for one more expansion and dialogue.
He'd already sort of been given his like, I don't. The plan originally wasn't to bring him back. Like when they killed him off, I don't think that, because I don't know if you know, when someone stops doing work for Bungie, they give them something. So Bill Nye got the Speaker's Mask.
Oh, did he?
That's died. And Nathan Fillion got, it was either a Cade statue, like a bust, or the Ace of Spades. He got given. They give that to some employees as well, but they do that for the voice actors. I don't know if they do it for all of them, but I think like the one who did Ikora got something as well.
Gina Torres or whatever.
Yeah. So, like, I don't think their plan originally was, we're going to bring him back because of that reason, but maybe they had it in the back of their heads.
Right.
But yeah,
I think it worked.
It worked.
It works. Yeah. Like, I said, I wasn't.
End.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting him to be the Hunter Vanguard again. Like, because the whole thing, Ghost is like, like you said, he's held together with light and wishes or whatever. Like, I just kind of like, I don't know. Just I don't know, like, on the contractual side, what it took to get him to come back and how many hoops they had to jump through.
I
don't
think
who initiated what.
I don't think he's too. He probably. I mean, by the sounds of it, he enjoys doing it. Like, I don't think it was something that. I mean, originally, the reason he didn't do Forsaken was, and I imagine this is part of the idea of killing him off, is
he's shooting busy. The rookie, right? Yeah, he was like,
he's busy. So it's like, if we need, it's the same reason why they replaced Ikora, is because she's just too busy. So
Yep.
And then again, I guess a money thing. I know that's like the very kind of just part about it, but it's going to be a money thing,
right?
Part of it, how can we save money?
Sure. But it's like,
that's not the whole thing, obviously. But that was in the back of my mind when they brought him back. He was like, right, he's either going to be a vendor. And so when he died, I was still like shocked how they did it.
Right.
Like, I wasn't expecting him to die that way, but I was sort of like, okay, it makes sense.
Yeah. I guess it's just, he's like done now though, right? And like, you can't bring him back again. Otherwise, at that point,
I don't think they would. That would just be, I mean, Crow is the Hunter Vanguard now.
Right. But like, if they ever
getting that shoes.
Right, but like, we were told that he was gone the first time, right? And it's like, it's the
a lot of shows do that.
And it's really annoying when they like, because like there's like rumors now that like Robert Downey Jr. is like interested in coming back to MCU, right? And it's like, it's all money thing, and that would probably help that.
That's the really cynical
franchise out, right? But it's like, I'm sick of this whole like, we're gonna kill a character off, make it final, and then you have that emotional like reaction to it because like you're preparing yourself for it, and like, okay, this character's actually gone, and then you're like, and then they just bring him back, and it like it loses.
Sense. I think for me it makes sense for not just him, but for Crow to have closure,
right? And that's fine. Just they need to be really damn sure they're not going to try to bring him back.
I do not think they're going to bring him back.
I don't think so either. I don't think gone.
All right, and if that's the case, then that's fine.
I can maybe see Amanda coming back as a Guardian. Doubt it, because they've really sort of done that with Crow.
Right.
But it would be really funny. Not funny, but for his development, that they bring Amanda back and he's sitting there like really sad and mopey because obviously, the woman he loved, I don't know how strong his feelings were it doesn't fucking know who he is, like.
Yeah.
So we got a comment in the chat. Seedup
we did.
07 said defeats the original moment. I'm assuming you're talking about kind of the Cade death thing, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is like I've spent the last 5 years getting over the death of Cade, and like they brought him back. Like sure, that's fine if he's alive in the Pale Heart, and like that's where he stands. But then they kind of kill him off again, and it's like I can't go through that again if they bring him back.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm getting at. It's like
this going to be slightly controversial. I mean, there's going to be. I imagine there's some people who felt the same way as me. I did not care for him dying in Forsaken. It didn't bother me. I think his death was very. It was like when they showed the trailer, that teaser trailer at E3, and him dying in the trailer. I was like, oh shit! And then it was sort of like, makes sense. Gets people riled up. I felt a lot sadder about him. Like I didn't care before, but I like was very teary at him at his death in Final Shape.
Sure. Well, what's cool about the Final Shape death is that like it's like bittersweet because you're kind of like it's almost happy in a sense, right? Because I mean the whole campaign, he's like, I want to go back to Sundance and just go back to being dead, and he's like, this is my purpose. I'm gonna save your
It's
ghost.
That smile. It's hard to tell when he's smiling because obviously the exo face and the way it's done. But it's that he smiles with his eyes as well.
Right.
At the end, some people can't do that, and it's quite hard to capture. I think in things that aren't
in a robot.
And things that aren't real.
Right.
It's a 3D model, but it's that smile he gives at the very end. When he's like, "Oh, nobody makes my fate but me," and he says, "You're my favorite. Don't tell it."
Yeah.
It's that he smiles with his eyes, and that was like I was like, oh, because I think his death in Forsaken felt very rushed and was just more of a plot thing than an actual death. It worked in Forsaken, but it didn't affect me. I did not really care as such. Yeah,
you didn't care in Forsaken when he died.
Well, Forsaken they also Forsaken, they had to go for broke, right? Like that, the game was basically...
I was too busy looking at random rolls, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, the game was...
go figure.
It was going to die if they didn't do something drastic to get people back. And
that's what I mean. It was, oh my God, we're so angry at Aldrin, let's go kill him. And it definitely worked in the long run. Like, it makes sense story-wise. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like, he's back. Crow now feels even more grief, but can get closure from him, can get like passing the torch to be the Hunter Vanguard. He gets the blessing to be the Hunter Vanguard, from the guy himself. So I think it's
and I kind of to your point. I think Scotty, you were saying like the whole campaign they build up. Like he definitely doesn't want to be there. Like he wants to go back to Sundance, and like that's fine. It's just I still stand by like this. It's just like don't bring him back again because then it weakens the meaning each subsequent time that they do it. Where then it's
there was a small part of me when he died that I was like, wait. Is he going to voice the ghost now? There was like a really small part.
I thought that was going to happen. Like
his voice going to come out of the ghost.
Then an article comes out where it's like Nolan North stops voice acting, and now
there's two of us in here now. Remember?
Yeah, you get like a weird Halo reference. Fail-safe. Yeah.
Oh my God. It's like another fail-safe. Can I quickly say fail-safe is now the best character?
Fail-safe.
Fail-safe is now the best character.
She's
Put
fine.
fail-safe in in the Exo Stranger, please.
Replace Elsie with failsafe.
Take her mind out of that body and put failsafe in. I'm happy now.
Yeah, see up. I
can't take with the weird speaking thing on the wall flirting with me. I don't know how to handle it.
Yeah. Well, that was the weird thing. So C-Dub also had another comment. Like, it's just each time someone dies and they bring them back. That's like. I don't mean to keep bringing up the MCU, but that's why I fundamentally hate Endgame, is because like Infinity War was this big thing. They kill off all these characters, and you care, and then they're just like, no, we're gonna do a time travel.
That's why I don't. I said this to people at the time because I didn't see Infinity War, but I remember when it was coming out, they advertised it as the second one wasn't Endgame. It was Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2, and a lot of the shows I like have, a lot of shows have penultimate episodes.
Right.
And it's the cool thing is seeing them get out of the shit that they get put into in the first part.
Right.
And when they all died, everyone was like really sad. I'm like, but why would they kill off all those characters when they could make? I know money, but it's like they could make so much money by making a film or a show out of these characters. They are morons killing them off. It's the same in comic books. They do it in comic books.
I know, and when it's a comic book movie, and that's fine. But it's just like you could have strategically picked off the ones that you knew weren't going to come back, and like had it still would have had an impact, right? Like to have Thor's brother die and all, like have Loki die, but then actually have Loki die, because then it's like a character that you've been with for a few years and you kind of actually like, but like you can still have he's like that's fine, but like and yeah, you're absolutely right. Like we all should have known better, but it's like why go through that? Why go through having it diminishes the value of what the first movie even represents, because you're like you go back and watch it and you're like
shut my blinds.
I was gonna say the sun's coming out.
Yeah, the sun rays is coming.
But it's like it just sort of diminishes the impact that you are supposed to have is all I'm getting at. Like I don't care now anymore about certain things because that person's death is meaningless. All right, so so I guess just so like the basic the first 7 missions you complete, and you don't even really defeat the witness in the campaign.
You wound him.
You wound him, which is awesome, because I was like, okay, because the whole time I was playing this, I was like, how is this all going to work? Because they said like there's going to be 7 missions, the raid, and then there's like a final campaign mission that kind of like finishes everything up. So I was like, how's this all going to work? So you wound him, he gets all pissed off, and then you escape. And then after that, there's like a countdown to when the raid starts, which is awesome.
That was so cool.
Yeah, that was a cool thing. Cool. So then the raid, you kind of also wound him more, but you don't really defeat him, which is kind of cool. Like you basically damage him to the point that he retreats, and then that immediately unlocked a mission called Excision, which is the first 12-man activity we've ever gotten, and it's match made, and it's incredible.
Technically 6v6 Crucible is a 12-man activity.
But like cooperative, yeah.
Leave!
Yeah. And then there was that glitch for a while where people could do 12-man raids, which I don't know if you ever did one when that was active, but that was so stupid and absurd, where it's like
I wonder if you would have got it if that hadn't happened.
Oh.
Yeah, I could see that, because people were basically like asking for it forever, of like, this would be so cool. And it's like it was the appropriate time to do it, right? Like
I don't understand how that mission can run on a PS4 or the Xbox One. I do.
You want to know? Because I played it on PS4.
Yeah,
it was still really cool, but
frames per second.
There were definitely some moments where it like frame rate dipped.
I didn't have any frame drops on the PS5, and that's 60 FPS in
that's impressive.
In PvE content. Yeah.
PS4 almost
you run it
off.
4K or 1080p?
No, just performance mode. So prioritizes frame rate.
Yeah. So I was doing. So I think. Well, I don't know. Mine's technically, I think, 2K. There's like you can like trick it into going to 4K, but it'll like downscale it to 2K if you have like the right kind of 2K monitor. Anyway, but I was definitely struggling a couple of times on PS5 as well, where it was like you'd get into certain places where there was a lot of explosions, and you're like, yeah, the console's chugging a little bit, but yeah. So first 12-man activity, and then you finally just beat the shit out of the witness in the most awesome, like everyone
it's so cool.
What were you gonna say?
The music.
The music's really good.
The music in that mission is fucking amazing, and the dialogue is fucking amazing. So it's 2 tracks. It's Stronger Together.
Yeah, that was so good.
And I literally was talking about this. Where's the other one?
Is it like Make Your Own Fate or something like that?
Yeah, Make Your Own Fate.
Yeah,
the music that plays when you do the fucking Baja Blast on the wind.
Like Kamehameha, yeah. Yeah, and it is awesome and so satisfying and epic in every way, shape, or form, and it needed to be, right. It's like you get the cutscene where it's like and the cool reveal, because there's like a radio transmission that you listen to between Ikora and Zavala, where this is after Tarj is dead, where he's like, "Can you teach me how to use stasis?" Because he basically feels useless now.
Yeah.
Because he's lost his light, but then he gets the iced fist, and you're like, "Okay, this is cool."
And then in the cutscene, where he's like,
Zavala got the nerfed version. Unfortunately, he was quite.
Yeah. Behemoth Titans are not where they should be, but that's okay. That's okay.
Don't worry, he's got Banner of War now. He's got Banner of War.
Yeah.
So he's got. All right, this is kind of a silly thing to get like super excited about, but I really love when we get to fight alongside like other like NPCs, like named characters.
Oh, it's always so cool when they do that. Yeah.
Like Saladin coming in, being like, "Here's a sword for you."
Season of the Plunder were there. Like Scurvy. They were there in the mission. Yeah, in the first bit. Yeah. My friend Scott noticed this when you're doing the capture the points thing at the start. Mm-hmm. A lot of the Minotaur bosses are just red Atheon.
Oh
yeah,
like they're literally Atheon. Like, but with like red eyes and things, which is cool. I like my favorite bit of dialogue is there's two. One of them's really cliche, and it's the equivalent of, like when people meme and it's like, "Oh, this is my Destiny 2," like the meme on the dialogue thing, and it's Cade going, "We'll show this shape, it ain't far." Yeah, and the one where Saint 14 shows up, and this one doesn't always play, but Cade freaks out because he's like, "Saint 14's alive? Why didn't anyone tell me?"
Yeah,
and
I love that. Like, there's so many things like that. Like when you do the strikes where you're trying to find like the lost ghosts, and you get all the like. There's one where Cade kind of is like, "Wait, this happened too?" Where it's just all these like things that he's like,
the nightmares. He's like, that seems like a problem, and the ghost's like, they're not really.
Yeah.
Or I know it's not the final shape, but failsafe going through all the stuff that she'd missed out.
Fishing.
Like, fishing.
That was good.
That was pretty good. Is that the original actress? Like they I'm assuming they just got her. Like that's pretty cool. Like that's.
I think they've given her a slightly different direction, or I mean, obviously time wise as well. They've changed as a voice actor, I imagine, and but I know people are like, it's a bit different. I was like, well, yeah, that was like
a couple
like,
years
how
ago.
Many, like 7
years ago? Yeah.
7 years ago, and then also they've probably given her better. I feel like they've given her better direction this round.
I'm sure. Yeah. Whoever voices Savathun, again, every time Savathun talks is amazing.
Yeah, I love in the cutscene where he's going through, he's like Elixni, Cabal, humanity, and then it's Hive, and it's just her going there.
I just love too that like Nimbus shows up and everyone's like, "Who invited? Who invited them?"
No. I know people meme on him, but I
love
Osiris
looking back at him.
I love the fact that he is now like the adopted son of Saint and Osiris.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
That is cool, and he's fucking he's fucking massive.
You know what? You know what would have made Excision better? The final witness fight would have been even more impactful if Nimbus came in and was like, "The uglier they are, the harder they fall." Am I right?
No,
and he,
but
fist bumped you. Oh man, I'd be.
But the fact that they didn't have Nimbus say anything, I think, was the right.
He spoke.
Thank God.
He spoke in the mission through like the. Like dialogue when you're doing the things, but he didn't obviously speak in the cutscene.
Right. Yeah. So so Excision I think was done really, really well. I did
snub one character though.
Who?
Shahan does not matter.
Oh yeah,
he does. He does. As to cross standing, no, I feel bad because the guy, and I've said this before, the guy who voices him did an interview. And around the time the character came out, he's a massive Destiny fan. He plays it. He's played it. I think he's played it since launch. He loves it. He's part of the community. He's like one of us, and he voices that character. People fucking hate Shawhorn. I don't have a problem with him. I mean, I didn't play the new light thing. I don't really care. Like not in a mean way. Just I'm not bothered by his existence. He's not. I don't like him. I don't dislike him.
It's just an easy character to make fun of. I think
people. the only critiques I've heard of him is the way he looks, because he looks like a Fortnite character. Like there's no other way to describe.
He looks like you got Aztecross and put him in a Fortnite filter.
It does.
TikTok or Snapchat or something.
Right.
No,
he uses young Ahamkara's spine, which is crazy.
But he doesn't run solar. I think he runs a different subclass. Is what people meme on him for. And obviously, and I think
because he represents blueberries.
Yeah,
true,
like his teammates
true.
die in the new like thing.
Right.
Like, his teammates die from like normal Hive.
Right.
This is sort of the meme. But I mean, maybe all right. I didn't notice him, but maybe he is there. You know, for a few seconds there's a shot of Zavala looking at everyone, and you get like
yeah,
you see like Mara at the front. So maybe he is in there. I hope
he might
they do
just with his helmet on, maybe.
That is true, because there's a Iron Banner Warlock. You know the D1 Iron Banner Warlock set with like the bird from the Taken King with like the bird point and the ears. That's pink. That's like pink and white. There's just chilling there. He's like one of the warlocks that shows up. But yeah, I mean, it's cool, and the people who I forget the team who finished day one first, got worlds first. But it's cool in the dialogue. It makes it seem like he's referring to them. Zavala's like, moments ago, one fire team.
Right.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, no, it all felt like proper fan service in like all the best ways, and was executed really well.
Fan service.
Yeah, like it wasn't a bunch of like contrived cliche stuff. It was like it was all on it. Like it is kind of how I thought it was going to end, of just like we beat the campaign and then you get this cool like now's our time to strike, and because they kind of did that like with Forsaken, right? When the last wish was completed, you got this cool cutscene, and then
there's one continuity error that won. And I don't know if they did it on purpose. So when they're escaping the witnesses monolith thing,
right?
In the mission before the raid, essentially,
right?
Mm-hmm. The wall breaks and Varley gets knocked down. He gets all like stuff on his face, like dirt and whatever. He still has that on his face in the final scene, in the rally, the rallying scene. But that takes place in game 3 days after. So did he just not clean his face at all?
Well, I mean, what's he gonna clean with? I mean, I guess
there's waterfalls.
Bodies of water. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Like he didn't once go, "Oh, I'll get this off my face."
Maybe he just thinks it looks really badass.
He goes to the helm. Like they get picked up in the helm, don't they? Surely there's a toilet on the helm.
He can't be bothered. He's too busy learning stasis.
Cool. He looks cool, but that's what I mean. He had time to learn stasis, but not wash his face. I imagine it's because they just used that model of him for that, and not the cleaner model that they used earlier on, because it would be taken the armor battle damage and but I noticed it and I was like, okay, there was a 3-day time jump in between that and that. Is he okay?
I like in Excision how much of a threat the witness is. Like, I'm glad it wasn't like, I mean, it's easy in the sense that you you're guaranteed to complete it, but like, I died a lot because like the witness will like beat the shit out of you, like with all those laser blasts.
It's actually kind of cool that they did that. Like, we'll talk, we'll do a raid deep dive at a later point, but like that effectively is the exact same mechanic in the raid.
Yeah, he's teaching
so it's like,
the raid.
Right. So if you're struggling with the raid, we told a couple of people in our clan to like go do that mission and really focus on not dying to that, because that is single-handedly like on the witness encounter, like what will wipe a team more than anything else is, we call it dancing, or like everyone's got to do dance practice, because it's like you are constantly moving on that platform for damage. And if you are not paying attention, you will die and then get picked up and then die again. Like the rate.
Well,
and then again,
when I first did it, I saw him do it.
Yeah.
And everyone else died, and I'm just standing there. And it's just guardian down, guardian, like just.
Yeah, and so you definitely got to practice like that whole thing. So I will say, so my one, we'll call it a critique or complaint of the Final Shape kind of like launch was, and I understand why they did this, but I was not a fan of the timeline that we basically got, where it came out on Tuesday. The raid was then that
the Friday thing.
Yeah, because
don't even get me started. That's upsetting.
Because our day one, like, so we did the first encounter during contest mode. So I was like proud of our group. Like, we at least got through one encounter of contest, and we probably could have done more. But the fact of the matter is, like, I and a couple of the other guys were so exhausted because we were basically hardcore playing the game between when launch happened and when the raid came out, that there was like, it was almost like there was no time to take in everything.
Oh yeah,
because we immediately were like, well, we all wanted to raid prep, and we all wanted to at least give some like a good college try, and like there was so little time fundamentally, and I'm not complaining. Like I have a full-time job. Like I'm not going to be like one of those like I only have to play 30 minutes a night. Like I was definitely playing more than that. But it was like I had no idea what I needed to focus my time on. Like, did I need to get a bunch of infusion fodder, or should I have like tried to find all of the aspects and fragments for prismatic? Like I had no idea what to focus on. Like, should I have tried to get some of the exotics? Because we didn't know if like, so there's two exotic, well, there's four exotics that kind of came out, right? There's Steel Hunt, which ended up being like the damage option.
It's
and
also,
you needed to.
It's also bugged in PvP.
Is it?
You get free ammo instead of one.
Good to know.
Some people have not noticed this. I think they should change that to all special or two when you get a thing rather than just the one. Because I thought they changed it to free because that was the first thing I used in the changes, and I was sitting there like, oh, they gave us free now. They're so cool. And then I was played loads of PvP with just that. Swapped over to my Frozen Orbit, which I normally use. Oh, I'm getting one. Oh, that's a bit depressing. What's going on here? But yeah, that's getting that's gonna have to be looked at.
Right. So it's like, so you have to get like, do you get the exotic? There's also the microcosm exotic, which is the kinetic, which I ended up being right. It was a kinetic trace rifle in the heavy slot, which is awesome. But it's like, do you focus on getting that? Do you try to get all prismatic completed? Do you need to go get the exotic sword ergo sum and try to get a bunch of rolls on that? Like, because it's a randomly rolled exotic special sword, which is awesome because you can get wolf pack rounds on a fucking sword, which is cool. And so it was like there was no time between when launch happened, and especially with the first night basically being a wash for a lot of people. Like I know there's a lot of people in my clan that are like, I'm not even going to bother playing this until tomorrow. So it was like, I'm not saying because of that reason alone, they should have extended the launch to like the next week. But I think with everything, I think it was too rushed. And I understand ultimately it was all because it needed to be like in a short period of time because of the story needed to all kind of, you wanted it all to.
I also think because of, I think a part of it was more of a benefit of this was in case anything is absolutely busted and people wouldn't have figured it out. Like say something with prismatic is broken, you know.
Right.
And people wouldn't have sussed out because they probably wouldn't have got all the fragments and.
Right. Yeah. And so it's
I know they can disable things, and they did disable things.
Right, and they disabled a lot of things, like Lucky Pants was just completely gone and stuff like that. And it's like, I really wish, like, and so what ended up happening is we did the raid day one, but all of us got through that first encounter, and we took a few hours because we were learning the mechanics and trying to learn how to survive in contest mode and all that. But I think the fact of the matter is, like, none of us were really feeling it, and it kind of sucked because like we did that first encounter and we're all kind of like, I think we're done here. Like, and then we tried to regroup the next night. So that was Friday night. And then Saturday night, we tried to do the second encounter. And after like an hour, we were all kind of like over it. And that was like a bad feeling. And I think it was because we were all just so mentally drained and exhausted because we'd all been grinding for like 4 days straight, trying to get a bunch of stuff. And that would not have happened. And so it really did, like, I know this is going to kind of be that cliche thing. It really did feel like it was catered to content creators who could actually invest, 24 hours worth of grinding to get everything versus like the dads of Destiny, which normally have time to do that and they just couldn't do it during this sequence. And that
I got quite lucky with
it kind of ruined the raid for me.
Yeah.
I was 1985 going into contest. I'd got quite lucky with it. I didn't even spend that much time power level, but obviously by the end of the campaign you're 1960 if you did it on legendary.
Right.
But for day one for us, we didn't have, because a lot of the people haven't come back for final shape because they're waiting for it to see if it did well.
Right.
We didn't have a full committed team, and then the people we did have had to go off for work the next day anyway. So it was only 3 of us who could stay up, and then we were sort of scrounging for people to do it, and a lot of the people we found, it was so funny. We had some guy join, and he just goes, "I'll do ad clear," and I laughed. I sat there and I was like, oh, like first encounter, and I was like, right, will you now? Because I knew like we'd sussed out what we were doing,
right?
And I didn't mind just going. I mean, it was first encounter. I didn't mind going over the stuff with someone else, but it was like you all have to do something. You can't like, especially in this raid. Maybe, I mean, all right, first encounter you can get away with having someone just do ad clear, but you can't have that mentality because then you can't pass things around. Like they have to pick up resonance, they can't just ignore that.
Right. Well, you need to learn it because. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. And we had people join, but I'll do ad clear. Like they were like, I've got really good ad clear. It's like, yeah, so have I. I've got a call with subsistence.
Everyone could do ad clear. That's like,
like everyone does ad clear. Like I that is the god roll for the call for me. Subsistence, hatchling. You never have to reload that gun ever.
The call is so good. I love it. I use that throughout the entire.
It does more damage than a mountaintop. The shots do more damage than a mountaintop.
That's nutty. That thing is crazy.
And I was running that Sunshot. And I think I changed, but I was running Apex Predator or what's the linear from Val? The name is it Cataclysmic?
Cataclysmic.
Yes.
Yeah. I was running that for the Tormentor Investigators, and then I was either running Prismatic with a throwy axe, the new one, or just Banner of War, and it was like the staying alive was not the issue. It was people just dawdling around, and obviously understanding how the plates work because there is some confusion of that.
The timing's goofy when you're first learning.
Yeah. I still think what are the scions called?
Oh, the subjugators?
No, the
dread
normal
ones?
scions. The dread scions. They are
attendants.
They have like Grand Overture in rocket mode, for, like their gun, and you just get one hit by him. I had Banner of War times for max resilience, and I'm like running to a room. I kill something. I hear something behind me. I turn around. It just goes dung, and I'll just fall over.
I wasn't a fan of the strand rubber. Like I like the strand rubber band guys. Like from a design standpoint, I think they're cool. But if you're gonna design a mechanic,
so tough.
if you're gonna design a mechanic around having to stand on a plate and timing it, you cannot have things that are like spawn in and immediately like pull you across the room. Like
I didn't have that problem. It was was just their guns that were for me. But I don't. Maybe it was just luck the whole time because my teammates were also complaining about them being thrown around. But I didn't. I think I had it once where one pulled me. But I found that through the campaign as well. I saw people complaining about them, and in the campaign, I didn't really get pulled around at all. I don't know if it was just luck.
Right.
The strand subjugators were the toughest for me as far as dread.
Well, their suspend lasts so long that it's
like a tracking projectile.
Yeah.
Like there's like no way to even dodge the strand thing. They'll fire like a. I'm like, what?
I was. Go for it.
Oh, sorry. No.
I was gonna say I'm okay with fundamentally with the rubber band guys. Like that's what I'm gonna call them. Like because once you learn how they work, you can like learn to kind of fight around them, and it's like kind of a fun challenge because it's like you're dodging their attack for like a different reason than just taking damage. But like in the raid when it's like because they spawn in the room at like awkward times, and if your buddy is like sending the charge back over to your plate and they spawn and like you can kill a couple of them, but one of them gets that like it's just. They're obnoxious for like the wrong reason, I think.
Some rooms were a lot easier than others.
Yeah, that's true too.
Rally, the room that you spawn in for the encounter where the rally flag is, at the top of the stairs. If you're there, the enemies spawn below. They don't come up to you.
Right.
So you can just stand there and do whatever. And they can shoot at you if you have to pick up resonance. But you can just chill up there. They will not shoot you. They won't come up the stairs. They'll just sort of walk around. But they're some of the other rooms, it's not
right. Yeah, but yeah. So I guess it's just like ultimately the presentation of 7 campaign missions, raid, and then Excision. Like, I like how that all flowed. I really think
frame is tough.
I think the community could have waited another week. And I think to your point, like, what if there was something like super buggy? It's like, and no one would have discovered it. And, like, fortunately, it all worked out. Like, it wasn't like Microcosm was like insta melting or something like that because it was like bugged if you put on Lucky Pants with it, or it's like some kind of weird thing. Like, no one found anything in that time. But at the same time, it's like, what if someone had and a team had just immediately escalated? Now, ironically, the thing that was like what the biggest stick in the mud was Encounter 4, right? That's like, if you look at like what the first team took 19 and a half hours or whatever to complete it, like, and I think they were on that. They were on that encounter for like half of that time.
I remember, I remember, because Salt the Greppo was in the lead, and obviously not a lot of people like him. I didn't know he was younger than me. I thought he was older than me. He's 22.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's young. And people were just ragging on him because I was people, and no, but people, because he got there first. He got to Encounter 4 first, but he was there. I think he was still there after the raid had been beaten.
Right.
I mean, loads of people were. It was funny. Yeah. It was insane, that encounter. But the amount of people I saw on all different socials,
which there's a lot of drama around the whole day one raid, right? Because it got to the point where certain streamers, certain streamers were just turning their game off or their view off. So you're basically watching a black screen, and it's music. Like music's
fire.
Right? Yeah, the music in some of those encounters is badass too. Shout outs to Michael Salvatore and that whole team. Unfortunately, for like the last time, I guess. At least that composition, But
I mean, we might get. They still have to give him credit. Say if they use motifs from depending on how blatant the motif is, they still would sometimes credit.
I think
or whoever the person who made that motif was.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, that time frame though.
It like
sucks.
I was talking to one of my clanmates who and I we always message each other on the side because I feel like of the people in our clan, we're kind of the two older. I don't want to say mature because we're just as immature as they are, but definitely a little bit more of like, we have like families and are married and have like, real people jobs.
Imagine being married.
And both he and I were just like, yeah, like we. Like, it became very clear that first night that we were not going to get a day one clear, but we definitely wanted to play it and see how far we could go, right?
It wasn't just that; it was hard. Like,
it was hard, but it was like
it was a good hard. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and in hindsight, like once, like we've completed the raid once since then. It definitely kicked our butts. Like we spent multiple nights on the Witness, and we probably spent about 3 hours in Encounter 4. And again, we'll talk about this more on another time. But like Encounter 4 is, like we were kind of talking before the podcast started, like Encounter 4 is one of those where it like separates to be cliche, it kind of separates the boys from the men, where it's like,
I'm doing ad clear, guys.
Right. And it's like, that is, you cannot just do ad clear on that encounter. And same with Encounter 2.
I'm going to get
there
shit
is no,
but like, like if you're going into a raid, like, please, like, just be open with what you can or can't do.
Right.
And say, and don't go in with the expectation that you'd have to do ad clear, because there's some encounters where you can't do that.
Right.
I mean, especially with the newest raid.
Right. In Encounter 2, which is the Tanix Taken boss.
Is that what he's going to be called? Tanix? Tanix of finality.
Tanix of finality. Like, he's really cool, but all 6 people have to do something in that encounter. Like, even if you're ad clear, you still have to step on a plate.
Someone's one-manned it.
Right.
So
wait, really?
I guess yeah.
Oh well. Yeah, but there's like that. I don't know if you could. People you have at one point one-manned Atheon as well, but that's bugs and glitches.
Yeah.
And stuff. Anyway.
Yeah. But if you're regular people doing raids, you're gonna need to have them do something. So
So you need to learn the mechanics. Same with like, especially the 4th encounter, because you have to know what you are doing. Now, ultimately, you could get super lucky and all 3 times stay on the outside, and you can do ad clear while one person does the mechanics on the outside. But like, you just learn the raid. But ultimately, like Encounter 4 truly separates like the casual raiders from like any kind of level of like hardcore committed, and that's fine. But like it was evident that encounter was like the deal breaker for a lot of people, and it's a testament to the difficulty of it when there's like someone finally posted on Raid Secrets like we don't need 30 different guides for the 4th encounter, like, but it's kind of a testament to like some people are just genuinely struggling with understanding how that works, and that's fine. But it's kind of one of those where it's like I still haven't decided because I've only done the raid once, but I still haven't decided if I like the raid or don't like it. Like I want to like it, but I'm not seeing myself wanting to do multiple clears a week and getting all of the red borders and getting all the armor, because quite frankly, I find the armor to be pretty terrible looking.
No, the Titan armor, Titan gauntlets, Titan helmet.
The Titan gauntlets are cool. That's about it though. But like the warlock, you look like a plague doctor.
Cloak. Like, don't like the shower curtain.
The shower curtain is terrible, and all the weapons are kind of weird look. Like I don't find myself enjoying the raid that much. But the encounter and my part of that might still be that kind of bitterness from that launch window. So we'll have to see in a couple weeks if I feel the same way. But as it stands right now, like that's the one part of the final shape that kind of like bummed me out, was just how tight of a time it was to like complete the campaign, unlock as many things as you can, and level up as quickly as possible. Oh, and then by the way, it's the most like kick your teeth in raid we've ever had.
Yeah.
So like unless you're a hardcore and can stay up for like what, like Aztecross and Datto were like they had like 34 hours before they completed it. Like was that, now the question is, was that what they were going for? And that's kind of another thing I'd love to like a follow-up conversation with Bungie is like, were you trying to make the most difficult raid possible?
I think they were.
Or did they overestimate how quickly people were going to figure out like the 4th encounter? Yeah. Like, because that was what the barrier was, right? It was the vault of this raid where but you couldn't brute force it in the way that whose team brute forced the vault and got through it the first group in Last Wish? Was that Glad's team or something like that? I don't remember. I didn't really.
Datto got through vault first, or they figured it out first, I think.
Right, but didn't I think the first team though they brute forced the solution, and then people figured out the whole like penumbra antumbra thing. But like couldn't.
You're right. That is the one raid encounter I still don't actually know how to do. Is vault. I know all the other encounters and the mechanics.
Right.
Vault, I do not know how to do.
That one I will go into and be like, all right, I'm gonna add clear.
You are gonna add clear, right? But like, were they trying? Like, I don't know. I'm curious. Were they trying to make a 20-hour raid, and did they did they overestimate how quickly we would have figured out the 4th encounter? Because that became very apparent. Like, oh shit, what have they done? And once you know it, it's really not that bad. Like it's almost kind of like it's a fun encounter because it's completely mechanic based. Like there's so like when you're on when you're clearing ads on the inside rooms, it's so little effort that you have to put into like keeping things at bay. Yeah. And it's like there's a couple of unstops on the outside. Like it's really not like really that difficult at all. But then we found that our biggest difficulty, and again, there was no reason for this. No offense to my clan, but there was a couple people in our group that were really struggling with just understanding how to like why we needed to do the things that we did. But there's a part where basically everyone dies, and you have to associate the ghosts with the statue of whatever character you were. So all of us tried to wear very distinct things and add very distinct ghosts. And it was like the real simple solution is like, so like I had a harpy shell, which was like very distinct. And then I was wearing like the Forsaken robes that have like the chains wrapped around the warlock. And so it was like, okay, harpy goes with like chains warlock. And so like we tried to have this whole system in place where it's like, okay, whatever your ghost is, when someone picks up like the pool shark ghost, that person just calls out, hey, I'm the Titan with big shoulders or whatever. And it was like, it was not that difficult, but some people could just, for the life of them, not be bothered to like shout out when it's like, hey, I've got the Game Boy ghost, and then like they wouldn't say who they were. Right, but you know exactly what I'm talking about when you say that, right?
I mean, I have the Trials of the Nine ghost shell, and I didn't know this. My friend Scott, he's always banging on about it. He's like, that's the rarest ghost shell in the game that isn't a paid for one. He's like, you're so lucky.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I've just had it on because it's like, oh, it's Trials Ghost Shell.
Right. Well, I have the basic ghost shell normally where like your ghost is on fire, like the solar one. But I was like, that's
the
not
arc one of that one.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know if that's going to be like on fire when I'm dead. So I was like, so I'm just going to pick. I picked the most obnoxious clear, like the harpy shell. Everyone knows what the harpy looks like. So like that encounter was like really interesting once you get it. But it's like there are people that I don't want to do that encounter with in my group because I know like it's going to turn into a 3-hour ordeal because they just don't. And it's like people keep commenting like, oh, I don't have a good understanding of like geometry and stuff.
Sorry. I made a meme. I was listening. I made a meme. I made a meme.
All right.
I thought of it. You said it, and I was like, I have to make it now. I had to make it
now. There it is. All right. Yeah, that's great.
For those of you listening, Matt just posted it's like a GIF of a couple shapes with
from a UK show.
From a UK children's show, and the caption is Salvation's Edge 4th Encounter Guide.
Yeah, and that's exactly like. But it's like people kept saying like, "Oh, like geometry's hard." And all this is like it has nothing to do with like. It's just, it's like there's one guy in our group, bless his heart, but he's like, "I'm so glad I paid attention to high school geometry," but like he was the one struggling the most, and it's like, dude, there's nothing to do with geometry. You just need to know your 3 basic shapes, and it's like that's all it is. And but it was like all I'm getting at is we finally did the raid and a couple of us were like, I don't know if I ever want to do this again because it felt so tarnished because of like the urge to get it done so quickly. And it was like, you know, I'm glad that the day one experience was a lot harder and like we needed something after Ron that needed to be rough. But like I would be hard pressed and surprised if they intended on the 4th encounter to be what it was. Like I think they overestimated our capabilities on that, and I think that's what it came down to. It was rough
when that schedule came out, when that timing came out, and they're like, campaign comes out Tuesday, raid Friday, right? And I was like, okay, I guess I'm not playing the raid, because I'm like I'm busy all day Wednesday, all night Wednesday, busy all day Thursday, all night Thursday. All right, so I have one day. I'm not going to grind the entire campaign. I don't want to do that.
Right.
Forget it. I'm not playing the raid. That's great. So.
But it wasn't enough just to grind the campaign either, right?
No, because you got to do other post-game stuff. And it's like...
But it's like, all right, you don't know if you're going to be severely hindered or ready because like I didn't get microcosm in that time because I didn't have the time. Like it wasn't clear on what I was supposed to be focusing my time and efforts on, and by the time it became clear, like ultimately the 4th encounter had nothing to do with that, but it just I wish that they had done it and pushed it out to this weekend is when the raid came out. And I think everyone could have waited another week for the final thing, and like it's like in the big grandiose like how much time people have to play this game and like getting the experience. I think it would have been better suited if more people felt like they could adequately prep for that day one experience.
I think that's always the complaint, and I think I get why. Like I understand, and I agree. I think they should have made it more accessible in that sense, but because it would have still kept the difficulty. Because you've got the only thing I could see is people would be a lot higher light. I know it caps. People would be like, oh, the cap is quite low. It was 1965, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and I was like 20 higher anyway.
Right, I was too.
So
the cap for Salvation's Edge.
Yeah, you only needed.
Was it 65? Because I know if you go into it now, it's like 45.
Right. The cap. Yeah. So they capped it at 1965 because and for this reason, right? They fully acknowledged that like basically you just needed to complete the legendary campaign and do a bunch of like powerful drops, and you would have been more than at light level for it. But again, it's all the other stuff where it's like the new exotics, unlocking all the fragments and aspects for prismatic, right? Because it's like you basically get the basic kit at the end of the campaign, and then you have to do those adventures to unlock the other aspects and like your grenades and melee abilities, and then ultimately, and then there's all these like side like mini quests that you have to do of like these little like hidden encounters to unlock all the other chests to get the other aspects. And it's like that kind of stuff. Now it's cool because you only have to do it once, and you've unlocked it for all of your other characters, which I think is like super important. I'm glad that they did that. But it's like and maybe that's why they did this, is because they knew ultimately that the way the raid was designed, you only needed to be at light level, right? There wasn't any like particular weapon other than Steel Hunt, which is interesting that it ultimately became like the top DPS option, but you needed to complete that to unlock the raid anyway. So it's like every team who participated in the raid had that unlocked, but it's still just kind of like, I felt like ultimately when we went into the raid that I didn't prioritize my time correctly, and I had no way of knowing how to do that when there's only 3 days. You know, again, I didn't have expectations, especially it became apparent that first night, because I was kind of off and on watching the people running the raid race throughout the day. I was like, yeah, we're not going to get a day one completion, and that's fine. Like I'm over that part of it. It just kind of soured, because by the time we were there Friday night, all of us were so exhausted. Like I was literally falling asleep at my chair because I was just so tired from the whole week of grinding and having a normal life and job, where it's like I could not devote.
Are you bragging? No,
well, yeah, kind of in a way where it's like, you know, on one level, I'm glad I don't have the ability to spend 30 something hours on a raid in one sitting. Like, and I also like fundamentally don't think that that's healthy. Like, again, it's like it's like almost like this makes me sound like I'm like a sourpuss or something like that. But it's like does Bungie really promote, like, some of those people stayed up like that? And like I know they took mini breaks and took naps and things like that.
I took a picture of Dato's stream, and he looked like the guy, you know, from the meme who's set in, and he's
right.
Oh yeah, like the Coraline shot.
Yeah. He was not
right.
Yet. And this was before he found out he hadn't won as well. Like, this was before that, but he looked rough.
I think the only day one I ever did was VOW, and that was not 30 hours, and I was still like, damn,
I stayed brutal. Up for 32 hours on VOW day one.
Did you guys get it completed?
No.
Oh.
So I streamed this. I don't know if people remember. You know when people get an error coded at the start?
Oh, yeah, they had to start the whole thing over.
We weren't getting error coded for whatever reason. So we went in and for ages tried to figure it out. Figured it out. I had people coming. I had like 1,000 people at one point going,
"Wow,
you're the only people in. Like you're the ahead." And I was like, "What the?" I was like, "There's no way I'm doing a day one. Like I'm not that. I love raids and I do them, but I don't do them a lot anymore. There's no way I'm doing a day one." We had a very stacked team though. Everyone was dedicated to staying up as well. And some of my friends who we were with, they like 2-manning raids and things like that. We then started getting kicked after we'd sussed out what we had to do. We then spent 3 hours trying to get back in. We should have gone to bed. We did not. We then got through that and then was at caretaker for about 11 hours, I think. Got through exhibition. Is it exhibition, the third one?
Yeah.
The name of it.
Yeah, it's like totems, caretaker, and then exhibition. Yeah.
So we sussed that out. I think we looked up one thing, but we sussed that out. We looked up the final room because we were sort of dying around the end of the room before that, third room, and then we got to Rolk, and we sussed out the one dunk method, and I've always done it that way since. You know, we have one person dunk come back rather than 2 people doing it, so it takes long, but it's more secure, I guess.
Right, because you have more people on ad clear, right? Like
yeah. And we thought that was just how you had to do it. We didn't realize that the 2 people could do it. But it was some of the guys we were with just couldn't deal with Rolk. Like,
right.
They tried to take the piss out of me for saying this. I was like, he's really predictable. He telegraphs all his attacks.
Right.
And they're like, nah. And it was like, but he does. Like, before he lunges at you, a massive fucking beam comes, like a wave on the floor appears. He walks around and then charges up and then does his blast thing.
Right.
The only reason he does something quick is if you go near him. It's like, don't get kicked by him.
Right.
But I stayed up for 32 hours trying to do that. We got him to final stand a few times, but just couldn't kill him.
Yeah. Wow.
At that point, I was like, I felt I gave up as well, and we all gave up. Right. And I felt like if I went to sleep, I would never wake up again. Like, I was at that point of tiredness where I felt like if I just went to sleep, I'd die. Like, I've never stayed up for 32 hours or
that's insane.
Like,
that's
I didn't. We didn't need to do that for Root of Nightmares. Like,
Root. I think our team got it in like 6 or 7 hours. And like, I'm proud. I know Root is kind of like, oh, who cares? You did a day one, so did like 8 million other people. But it was cool to say that we've done one day one completion.
Yeah, you get the emblem and everything. It's cool,
right? And like, what is it? We had kind of similar experience on Crota's End day one because we did that when it came back, and I was feeling pretty good about it. And like, there's a couple of us that, again, the guy that I messaged kind of on the side about when things aren't going well, he and I kind of have like all right, we're gonna call it soon, right? Because like we're both at least cognizant enough when we understand like this isn't gonna happen, right? And I kind of had that moment when we were doing Crota's End because we got to Iryu, which is, halfway through. So I was proud of us for getting that far. But there was a couple people that could not figure out how to read what room the wizards were in to like get to damage. And I was one of those runners, and I had kind of figured out like, and this was before we figured out like, oh, if you use Wish Ender, you could just like see. But I got good at being able to like deduce based on like, you can look at your radar, and then also like if you stand just at the right angle enough, you can see just part of a shrieker sticking out or like where the wizards are. And so like I had no problem, but the other two guys that were doing it, every single time they're like, okay, I'm in the right room, and they'd go in there and it'd be the shrieker and we'd have to wipe. And it was like after like an hour of that, I was like, these guys aren't getting it, and like I'm not going to stay up for another 7 hours because like, and it was just like you could tell that they were getting frustrated. And like, and again, I'm not trying to sound like, oh, I'm better than everyone else. Like I happen to pick it up quickly. Like I figured out what to do and how to kind of read the room, pun intended. And like, but it was like everything that I was trying to explain, and maybe this is my fault because I didn't explain it well enough, but like I had enough sense at a certain point. I messaged that guy and I'm like, I think we need to call it because we're starting to like get hostile towards each other and like blame each other. And I think that's a dangerous part too, where we just need to stop. And like when we were doing the fourth encounter on this, there was a couple of times where a couple of us, you could tell tonally in our voices, we were getting really, really frustrated at one or two guys. And it's like, it's good that we got it when we did, because I think one of us might have said something that couldn't be unsaid, and for no reason, right? It's a video game. People need to get over it. Like, it's all about having fun.
In my friend group, we all take the piss out of each other anyway, we've never had arguments or any, like, luckily, because I think we're all just sort of. I guess it's because we're all English, British. Take the piss.
But there's a couple of guys that don't. The problem is they come out of the woodworks and they want to do a raid, like they want to do one clear when it first comes out, and it's like we're still learning it, and you can kind of tell like they want to just get like carried a little bit, and it's like, nah, man, like we're all learning this together, and they're the ones that are always like, oh, I'll be on ad clear and stuff like that. Like it's those groups of people, and so it's like I'm getting frustrated. I don't know them very well because I don't play with them on a regular basis, so I don't know how far I can go in terms of like criticizing them. Again, not getting mad or being an asshole about it, but just like, hey man, I couldn't help but notice, but the last 7 wipes have been your fault. And it's not like, and there's no sugarcoating it, right? Like they blatantly are like, oh, I shot the wrong thing, or oh, I didn't dunk the shape in the right statue or something, where they like, but it's like, you notice the
reason the final shape happened.
Right. Exactly. Like you notice those patterns and you like, but it's like, they're like a friend of a friend or something like that. And you're just like, well, I don't want to hurt this guy's feeling and have him just like rage quit, because it's like, now I'm the jerk. And I'll feel bad because, again, it's a stupid video game. Like, I need to get over it just as much as everyone else. But like, this rage just kind of really brought out the worst in me, I think, in certain circumstances. And I really do. I keep going back to I don't think I would have been as full of bitter and vitriol if like the raid came out this weekend instead. Yep. And I really do think that's what should have happened. Just I know from like the storytelling standpoint, they wanted it in this quick succession.
The Witness is going to do a final shape in another week,
right? But that could have worked, right? Because like
there's like prep time,
right,
written into the story, right?
Well, and we also wounded him, right? So it's like,
yeah,
for a week he could be licking his wounds while we, and what they should have done then. But I know, like, from a story perspective, like, Echoes couldn't start until we defeated the Witness and all that stuff.
It's going to be weird, but there's going to be people who don't buy the expansion, but they buy the season. I know it's an episode now, but that's going to be the case. So, and they're aware of that.
Right.
So,
but I just, like, I don't know what the solution was, but I think they should have waited another week. Like,
also, people tend to wait for reviews for a DLC after the raid, like that. So,
which I think this is like right now, and as of this is like the highest rated thing that's come out in 2024 for video games.
It is 9.5.
It is killing it with reviews, and rightfully so. Like, this, they said they wanted something that was in the spirit of Taken King or Witch Queen, and I like
better than that.
They might have exceeded it.
I think they exceeded it. I mean, all right. So I know we've been going on for a while, but I do want to quickly mention, like, the Pale Heart and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think it's the best location possibly, like, in the game,
because it's like 9 locations in one.
Yeah, and there's like actual stuff happening, right? There's like everywhere you go, there's like there's a bunch of little encounters all over the place. So
Overthrow
many
is
secrets.
the best public event thing they've done as well.
By far.
Oh yeah.
Overthrow is so cool.
Overthrow is awesome.
Solo it. You can just solo it.
If you want to, right? And it's like, it's awesome. I think my previous favorite was the Dreaming City, but I think the Pale Heart might at least be on par with the Dreaming City as far as like much cool stuff happening.
It has more than one landing zone, so there's
awesome.
And I think the main reason why the Dreaming City gets, I mean, there's a lot of secrets in the Dreaming City, and it end game destination we had, but also it was the second location, though, if you put them together, because the Tangled Shore and the Dreaming City themselves aren't actually that big. Tangled Shore especially, but it's because we got 2 places to go to.
Right.
I feel like if they'd just come out, all right, it probably would have been a bit bigger, the Dreaming City.
Yeah. I remember being really disappointed by, like, Savathun's Throne World, for example.
I think Savathun's Throne was quite boring, personally.
It's really empty.
Aesthetic.
Yeah.
But, there's fuck all enemies in it as well.
There's nothing to do, and, like, Pale Heart, literally everywhere you turn, there's, like, something. Right. To discover, and I think that's so cool.
I know there's obviously recency bias because there's more secrets to discover, and
sure, but even that, like, there's Overthrow in every landing zone.
I was quite bored in the Throne World, like the first week. I just don't. I was kind of bored. The Hive aesthetic works well in certain areas, but it just, for hers, it was like the best parts of it were the corridors in between missions rather than the actual explorable area.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I think it suffers the same thing that a lot of patrol spaces do, that it gets kind of samey.
Yeah.
And like,
I wish there was more swamp.
Right.
And controversial opinions. I tried to get this out of my clan and friends, but they couldn't really give anything that was actually a controversial opinion. They were just taking the piss.
Controversial as far as what, the expansion just in general?
Yeah, like, I don't mean like they heard controversial and they said something rude, and I was like, no, not that controversial. I mean, like, something that would be controversial in terms of the general, consensus of the expansion so far.
I think so.
Like, I think I hate Zavala. He's out of character.
No, I think the only real thing that it's like, we're over the day 1 raid thing. It's past, the raid's out, everything's good. I think just that experience was kind of a bummer. I will say the only thing that I don't like is the pathways, Wayfarer, whatever the hell they're called, for
Pathfinder
for the ritual playlist is bad, like legitimately bad, because you can get a path that forces you to play all 3 ritual playlists, and like, that's fine, but if you're not,
it defeats
really
the point of Pathfinder.
If you're trying, if they're trying to promote this play how you want, that goes completely against that. If you can get a crappy board that forces you to play a Gambit match and then have to play some PvP and then play strikes, which, it's like, if you are not in the mood to play Gambit or play strikes and you only want to play Crucible, like, you should have that agency to do that. And like, that's the one. You're laughing, Map. I want to hear what your response is.
It was the way you said. No. It was the way. I've got response, but it was also the way you went. It forces you to play a Gambit match. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Forces you to play Gambit.
Maybe multiple though.
It forces you to play Gambit once. That was
offensive
enough.
It's more that it like breaks up. Like sometimes you just want to shut your brain off and play strikes for a while.
It forced me to click on the Gambit button in the destinations tab.
Right. That's
no.
But it's like you have people that are just like not at all engaging with the system flat out because you have to play. Yeah. You have to play Gambit matches or you have to play PvP.
I like it. I haven't played strikes at all, other than like an occasional GM in the past year. Like I just haven't touched strikes at all. I don't have a reason to. There's a few steps where I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to get blinding kills in PvP. I'm not running flashbangs. Like, why? So or anything. I guess I could run Queen Breakers, but I'm not doing that. So I'll do it in that. And I did play, and it's got me to play Gambit a little bit, but. And I'm going to sound like this is the PvP part of me coming out. Good. It's getting people to play PvP.
Sure.
Good. I'm like, if rewards don't get people to play PvP, then I don't know what the fuck else will. You know, and that's what is needed, because PvP, I feel at the minute, is pretty good. There's not. I know people were like, "Oh my god, Prismatic," when it was announced. It's going to break PvP. It hasn't. Yeah. When you're in Prismatic, you can throw you get to recharge your grenade, and it's like, like the amount of times I've seen someone go, enemy team person has just gone Transcendence, they've jumped around the corner, dome them, sorry, you know, no weird grenade for you. Like I know that's a skill issue there, but I haven't seen it be a problem. I haven't seen clips of people, like my own personal experience, but I haven't seen clips anywhere of people going, oh my god, this is nuts, and someone's activated Transcendence and they've got like a 7th column, just easy peasies. But we need another reason to play more than there is, and they've given another reason. I get that some people are terrified to play PvP, but if this has worked, I imagine there are some people who have seen the Pathfinder and gone, shit, I got to play some Crucible, and then maybe enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think though.
I do understand why it's dumb, that it's like a deterministic way to get rewards, but you have to play multiple things. I get why that is dumb, and I feel like that's more of partly on them, whoever was doing the marketing for that bit, and because they've sort of not lied, but just sort of not said properly what it was. So I get that point, and I think there needs to be Pathfinders for different destinations as well, not just the Pale Heart.
The Pale Heart one's perfect. That one I feel like I always can complete it by just passively running around, because there's enough diverse things of like pick up plant materials, pick up this, kill enemies with power weapons or energy weapons. Like you're gonna passively do those.
I mean, I've done the destinations one, the Crucible Gambit. I've done that one. I think I've reset it about 5 times. Like I've done it a lot. I've played a lot of PvP since the update, but I've passively done it. I haven't looked at it and gone, oh shit, I better do that. I've looked at it once where I've gone on there. I've done the end ones. I've done the starter ones. There's one in the middle. Oh, I need to do this. So to get a bit.
Yeah, and to your point, none of the requirements are like that demanding. Like it's not like
it's gone. There are ones that it's like you need to get sniper precision kills in Vanguard, Strike playlist, Gambit, or Crucible. It's not like it's gone get 10 sniper rifle final blow, precision final blows in PvP while someone's in their super.
They're not so incredible. It just, if you're gonna have like, especially when you get to like the last 2, those should always be specific, like make them be pretty grindy. Like you need to get a lot of sniper kills or a lot of something, but they should not be like ritual playlist based. Like it should not ever be a Gambit one only, like, or
some of the Crucible ones I've seen are like kill 5 hunters, kill 5 type, like
and that's not that bad. You can get those knocked out in a match, but it's just it's one thing to go play a bunch of strikes and you're like, well, I can't complete this node until I do a Crucible match, and it's like, I
Crucible match. People were saying like, oh, it's replaced bounties, but they're not specific to an activity, which I get. But I feel like I'm going to do that more than bounties because I got to a point where I just wasn't, especially last year, I just wasn't picking up bounties because it's like, what's the point of picking
Well, and
up?
you had to go to the tower to pick them up or do them on your phone.
I mean, you can do it on the app.
Orbit.
Yeah.
Right.
But
I will say
I just wasn't picking them up because it's like, what's the point?
Right. And also getting to the menu. I know there's like the quick where you just go to any ritual playlist and press left on the D-pad. Like I know you can do that, but it's still like I think it's too many clicks. Like it should just be. I didn't
actually know that.
Yeah, so you can if you just go into the Crucible Strike or Gambit playlist and just hit left on the D-pad, it'll quick open it, but you still have to get all the way to that. Like it should just kind of be in your quest tab. Like and I know that's easier said than done. There's probably some limitations to doing that, but it is one of those if you're trying to like track one closely to see how many more do I need to do to get this done, like it is kind of a pain. Whereas like and I would say that only because the one in the Pale Heart is super easy to get to, where you just open the map and it's like right dead center, like you snap to it easy enough. So it's like the fact they did it in the Pale Heart, but it's like it's a few extra steps to get to the ritual one is kind of a pain. So like of everything in the final shape, that's like my really only complaint is.
And I'd say that's more of a quality of life thing. I know people don't enjoy it, but that's not like they could change that. It's not going to always be there for final. And then even the bit that is associated with the good because it's just the Pale Heart destination.
Right, the Pale Heart one's great, and it's again, it's you're absolutely right. It's a quality of life thing. It's not necessarily like the final shape itself. Hey, thanks for the follow, Mr. Meek. I did see your comment. I do want to kind of respond to what you're talking about because I don't disagree with you completely, but I wanted kind of us to finish this thought. So thank you for the follow. I do want to address that real quickly. Here's some thoughts about kind of returning players and just sort of the feeling lost in a sea of like there's so much stuff, and it sounds like he jumped on and then played for one day and then jumped off again, which kind of sucks because it's like this should have been the expansion to bring people back, but it's like I think this is always the problem that Destiny is going to have, where it gets so more convoluted and down a rabbit hole that like the further separated you are from it, the harder it's going to be to come back. And like I think it's just the nature of it. Like I'm not saying it's right. I think it's just kind of.
I imagine the best expansion to join back will be whatever the fuck is the next big expansion.
Yeah.
Which it's not tied to any story, and
right.
I get in terms of loot wise, it's you come back and it's oh my fucking god, all these different guns I'll need to get.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I was at dinner with some friends yesterday, and one of my friends was just asking. He's like, should I I've always wanted to try Destiny. It looks really cool. Is it like worth getting into? And I was like, well. Yes and no. I mean, Destiny's really good right now, but I cannot possibly imagine being a new player right now.
Yeah.
I don't know how you would get into it. I'm not sure what that experience looks like.
They ask, and you're like, so, do you like shapes?
Yeah. How are you with triangles, circles, and squares? And
can you identify those pretty clearly?
Yeah. Do you know, how was your high school geometry? It's almost impossible. Yeah. And so Mr. Meek, so what I had some buddies that finally kind of got into Destiny, and they played casually, but they started inquiring about endgame stuff like dungeons and raids and things like that. So I've been helping them out, but it became very apparent that they didn't have any of the quote unquote meta stuff now. So what I did is when I realized that they were more committed, I sat down one night and put together a spreadsheet of basically everything they should try to get and where to get it and what the ideal roles were. And it's like, because where do you start, right? Like one of the biggest things is like, oh, you should get a Riptide from Crucible, but it's like, because it's a decent like all-purpose like you can get.
I don't have one.
How do you not have one? Like that blows my mind.
I stopped. Well, I've dismantled a million of them, probably. But I have God roll stuff. But I don't play the game to get God roll things anymore. I haven't for a long time. I know as a new player, like one of my friends at uni, when he talked to me about God roll things, and I'm sort of like, I don't care. Like,
yeah, and that's fine. And honestly, with weapon crafting, like there's enough in there that you're set. But like they were kind of just
very
like,
helpful now with the rework.
Yeah, and all the changes to Xur. We haven't even talked about that, but that's incredible too. Xur taking strange coins again and having just like you can buy catalysts.
99 as a cap is. I get why they've done it because there's like there's a thing with him where if you spend stuff, you get stuff back.
Right.
But it's like still it's like
it's a little unnecessary. I do agree with that, but like they it was just and the list wasn't like overly intense. There was a handful of weapons where I'm like, okay, if you're gonna craft a taipan, it really should have firing line on it. Like that's more what the intent of the list was, and also like. A couple of them were like, hey, how do you get xenophage? Like I see, like, because I did a VOG with them and I was one-shotting all of the oracles with xenophage. And they're like, how are you able to take them down so quickly? I'm like, I'm using xenophage. Like, how do you get that? And it's like, okay, well, that's actually kind of a cool quest. And there's a dungeon.
Card out.
You're gonna want to buy.
To be fair to them, they have consolidated all of the expansions now, and they've made it way less legacy, and that is everything that the DLCs that you can currently get that are in the game.
Is it like everything prior to Witch Queen that's like consolidated?
No, I think it's Lightfall. It's Lightfall and everything.
Yeah, excluding the dungeon passes. That's the only thing it's excluding.
Stupid.
That is.
But
stupid.
It's like I mean, I've seen it on sale. I think it's been on. It's currently on sale because I think it's like £25 on PlayStation.
That's not bad.
It is on Steam. Quickly
for every expansion, including Lightfall and Witch Queen and those recent ones.
So
wow.
On Steam, it might be on sale as well. It is.
That is important information for a new player.
Lightfall, Witch Queen, Beyond Light, Shadowkeep, the Forsaken pack, and the 30th anniversary for £20.
Wow.
On that's on sale. That's on Steam at the minute. Instead of it being $57.99.
Yes.
Oh wow!
It's $70 on. So on the PlayStation Store right now, you can get 65% off if you have PlayStation Plus.
So maybe now is the time to start playing.
So $25. So I will give also the preface that all of these people that I've been playing with, they've bought in all the expansions and have like all these dungeons unlocked. They've just never had, we'll say, the confidence to go through them or learn how to do them. So I've been like. This is the group that like have been giving me like free beer, which I'm very grateful for. So like, I'll carry them through a dungeon and then grab a beer with them sometime. Like
anything for beer.
I also like they're cool people. Like Andy, if you're watching, shout outs to you because he's the one that kind of like I didn't know that he played Destiny. We were talking about it one time while we were at the local pub, so to speak. And so he's like, yeah, if you get my wife and I through something, like I'll buy you a beer sometime. I'm like, that sounds like an awesome deal. So. And then we found out that the brewer of that particular brewery also plays Destiny with his wife.
Oh yeah, like, I think you mentioned that. That's so funny. I saw a raid carry on. Sorry, on LFG. There was one time there was like what was it? We'll accept like a raid carry for a Costco membership or something. It was like an LFG.
That's awesome
or something. Sorry, continue.
You gotta get those $1.50 hot dogs somehow.
Yeah.
So I make jokes that I do it for beer, but ultimately like I like them and it's hey more people playing the game. But ultimately like we were talking like hey do you have a linear fusion rifle for doing damage? And they're like no. I'm like well as it turns out you can craft a taipan and by the way you should put firing line on it because that'll help because you're all bunched up for And this is so like, and we're going through like Vault of Glass, and I'm trying to teach them like kind of fundamentals of raiding.
Sorry,
I know.
My distaste for VOG has got worse.
Well, good. Especially since you're using the Aegis throughout like the entire.
No, I like that. I like the shield.
That is cool.
I enjoy that.
Yeah.
And I like using it in VOG. I just think VOG as a raid is shit.
I don't know how you could say that when we've gotten
boring. It's so boring.
Well, because it's been out for 10 years. But if you've never raided before, you got to start somewhere. Like
I know, but like just the presentation of it, you're in a fucking cave.
Yeah, but like Atheon's cool. That's a good fight.
I think the vault itself, once you get in there and you get the glass throne, is pretty badass. But I mean, you're not wrong. It's like it's a cave that's been manipulated by
someone. Someone I know, they do raids in like MMOs and stuff, and they tried Destiny for a bit, and we took them through VOG, and they were like, yeah, this is they found it boring, and I was like, and I didn't really hear that opinion from them till months later. And yeah, I just didn't vibe with, like they just didn't have vibe with the game, which is fair. But they were like, yeah,
sure.
The raid we did, it was boring. I was like, Yes, because Fog is boring.
Right.
I said, look, these other raids, you do all this other cool shit, and they're like, wow, that does sound really. Yeah, that one in particular,
you're defending plates for like some of the encounters. Like
that's like the first third of the
right.
The raid, honestly.
There's so many like if you think about how many encounters there are, I know people split it up to oracles, Templar and Atheon, but it's like no, because there's so many different fucking checkpoints in between that.
You have the confluxes, you have the oracles, then you have the Templar, then you have Gatekeeper and Atheon.
For the time, amazing.
Right.
For the time, amazing. Even after they've updated it now, I like the changes. I know we're going back to our fucking raid video, but it's so outdated. It is
outdated, yeah. But again,
people love it. People like it's the best. Other people say it's their favorite best raid. It's like I understand the nostalgia reason, but it's not the best raid. Come on.
No, I don't think it's the best raid. I think it's a good teaching raid because it's also like drops per like hour spent. Like there's 3 secret chests in there, and there's like 5 encounters, and half the encounters like you can be completely brain dead, and it's like you just stand over here and make sure nothing gets to this tower. Right.
Yeah.
Like it gets people. It gives people a taste for raiding.
Yeah,
and it's like
the encounters. What I find funny are what people took the piss out of Destiny 1 missions for being. You sit here and defend something.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and I'm glad that you have something now like the 4th encounter of the newest raid. Right, like we've come a long way from defending confluxes. Like I'm glad that we've evolved, but like if
I saw the other day people were talking about it being like one of the best raids, and I was like,
it's right, not. Wait,
definitely not.
Map, I have a question for you then.
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't do Vogue as like your teaching raid, if you were like sherping your friend through something, someone who's never like done a raid before, what would be your like teaching raid? Would it be like Crota or like Rooted Nightmares or something?
Crota's too hard now. I know it's long, but I would do, to get a taste, I would do up to War Priest.
Kingsfall.
Kingsfall.
I know it's long, but going up to War Priest and maybe stopping, because like depends on how much time the person has. Rooted Nightmare is a good one. It's not free, though.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this, and people are gonna wrong. I'd rather do Garden of Salvation than Vogue.
Wow, that's so wrong.
That is bold. That's controversial opinion.
I would rather do Garden of Salvation than Vogue.
See, I think the tether mechanic would disinterest a lot of people.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying as a starter raid, no.
Right, and that's all I'm getting at. I think is Vogue has, because when I was able to get people through Vogue, and mind you, this is 5 other people who have never raided before, so it's me and 5 people who've never touched a raid.
I've never done. The max I've done is free. Is free new people. I've never done.
So Vogue, I can do like oracles by myself if I have to, and I've done that before, trying to teach people how to do Vogue, where it's like no one, like they just could not wrap their head around, and that's where I want to, like, I'm not trying to like bag on a subgroup of the community, but it's like, especially like when you look at like when Destiny first came out, and it's like all that people were doing is like running strikes, which is like you run in a straight line and kill things and defend things and kill things and defend things. And then the moment you have a mechanic, and I'm using the term mechanic very lightly when talking about something like oracles, where it's like, wait, you have to shoot things in an order that they appear? Well, that's too much for me. Like that's a large portion of the community where that's a tall order. And you have people who I've explained that to, and they're just go, no, I'm just going to add clear while you guys do it. And it's oracles, right? So like, I'm trying to give like a range of spectrum of like, you want to do a raid, you want cool gear and shit, you have to work for it. And if like, so like, I feel like Vogue is like a litmus test of like, if you can't even take basic orders and understand basic, like something has to happen in order for something else to happen, and then you can finally damage the boss. If you can't even get over that, then like, I'm not going to waste my time trying to explain the lantern encounter or doing the plate encounter for Kingsfall or Deepstone Crypt of what the different roles are, right?
Deepstone's like not a bad one actually.
See, but I feel like the whole starting encounter with the biting cold and like the sparrows and the
I get that. If
the
Wrath,
first
if Wrath was in the game how it was in D1, because I imagine if they bring it back they would work mechanics. Wrath is also
Wrath would be a great teaching raid because it's a lot more action oriented and people can understand like the first encounter where you're just like you're dunking balls so that you can get to a damage and then you slide under a door and shoot it so you don't die, right? That's a pretty good like starting point for people to understand. And I think
of what they do to make that harder.
I know. One, the opening encounter to even get to the into the raid is great because it teaches you like, oh, I'm charging up balls to do a thing and dunking them, right? Like I feel like I agree. That's a great teaching raid. I feel like Deepstone Crypt is kind of weird. Like I know in terms of like teaching people mechanics, it's pretty easy. And like you understand the roles in that first encounter because you're doing all of them. But I feel like the fact that the first encounter is like you're shooting capacitors and like it's a boss that has like a health bar, like it's a little weird. And I feel like
have you seen how they do the health for that?
What do you mean?
Like so in the raid encounter, off in a room that's like out of bounds, is a little box with a vandal in, and when you shoot those.
That's what's taking damage?
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
Oh, really?
They code it as like a vandal. That's rad.
Yeah.
That makes me happy.
You know what I miss? I think Leviathan would have been a good starter raid for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done teaching through Leviathan. I think
I think it's a solid one.
The only difficult one is Dogs is quite. You can just get people to follow you.
Dogs is, but you need.
Gauntlet is a pain sometimes.
Gauntlet can be.
Yeah, but I mean,
though.
Yeah, I mean, it's like simple enough that like it's like the introduction of mechanics, right?
The jumping bit at the end, when everyone has to get through, and you need a certain amount of the ionic energy or whatever.
I do think. Yeah, I feel like dogs is probably the only rough part. What are the? Baths is pretty teachable because it's like, hey, just go stand on this plate and then go to another plate and
main counter. I need to hear it. It's so good.
And Callus himself is pretty easy to understand with like the.
Well, you can hide a lot of people in the main room where they could just clear ads, basically.
Right.
Yeah, you put the 3 people who know what to do in the mindscape, and then everyone else could just fuck around, I guess. But
all right, so we need to have a follow-up raid podcast.
Yeah, apparently. Wow. Anyways,
can we get guest on for that? Can we get guest on for that?
Who?
I don't know. We'll reach out to people.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. I'd love to.
Yeah. I feel bad because I'm like suggesting these people, and then like I've come in, I'm new, and I'm like, right.
No.
I think the more guests we get, the better, fun. Right? Like,
oh, totally. Yeah. Mixes things up for sure. All right. I mean, do we have anything else? Obviously, we have a ton of.
I'm sure we could. Like we didn't really talk about
all day. I think
we didn't really talk about prismatic itself.
No, we didn't even touch on it. We've been going for what 2.5 hours over.
Right.
But yeah, I know. So, anyways, I think that's about it for this episode. Next episode, we'll talk.
Should we rate it out of 10?
Well, I can't rate it out of 10 yet. I don't think.
Ooh.
I don't think because I haven't played it enough.
Because how much have you like done?
I've done a decent amount. I feel like I just got to the. I did all the adventures, all the post game adventures. I did.
Have you done all the assists yet? And
I didn't do all this. I did like one so far. So I've collected some of the ghosts.
Right.
I've done all. I don't know.
I would say you should probably complete a little bit more of it. Like I mean, it's once you do some of it, it's a lot more of the same. But like the assists are kind of like
They're
like
cool.
They did.
I mean, the one I did was cool with the sword and stuff, and fighting hive light bearers with the sword I thought it was cool. It was just unique.
I wish that you could just start them from orbit. Like I don't like that you have to
actually
go and then follow the hawk to where they are. Yeah, like it gets a little especially like when I did all of them and then found out like spoilers to get for the Kvostov quest. You have to find a pile of trash that's in each of them. So I had to go back and do them all again. and it got a little tedious where I'm like, I've already followed the hawk. I've already like done the puzzle to like unlock it. Like, let me just start it from the entrance.
Yeah,
but
right.
There's a couple things like that where they're like real minor, like in the big scheme of things. Like we didn't even talk about the exotic mission, the dual destiny.
I think we gotta save. Let's save that
because that's a
whole
like
mess that people have turned it into. So we'll save that. For another time.
We'll save the controversy. But like, the campaign is phenomenal, and
campaign
I would say has
instead of
go for it.
I think it's the best campaign.
I agree.
I don't know. I feel like the vanilla D1 campaign's way better. Just saying.
No.
Whoa!
Not even by any kind of reasonable margin. I would say it's definitely.
You say vanilla D1 campaign?
Yeah, I was just being kidding. Like,
okay.
I don't think you can even begin to like defend. I was like,
I mean, there's probably people out there who would. I can think of a few content creators who would, but you know.
Yeah.
I will still always be the apologist of like, I don't think that the vanilla D1 campaign is as egregious as
it's not that bad. But
it's not that like it's
no way.
It's more just like people act like it's the worst campaign that's ever been created for a game, and it's like I can think of so many worse, like just horrible story missions. Like, but like anyway, I agree. It's up there. It's definitely. I won't say it's the best, but it's probably top 3 for me.
Top 3. Okay, what are the top 3? I think it's the best. I mean, in terms of story, best written characters, I was the most invested I've ever been in Destiny.
Yep.
Besides Forsaken.
See, I would put Forsaken and Taken King, like those 3 in no particular order. Like
Taken King campaign or the expansion? Because I don't think the campaign's that incredible.
The Taken King campaign?
It's fine. I mean, it's good.
The first mission and the last mission are good.
That's it. That's kind of Forsaken is though too.
But I lump the whole like Taken War post campaign a part of that, just in the same way that I would lump like the adventures with this, like, and that's what really sells it for me.
Right,
because
the only thing I would say with that is now we have seasons, so our post campaign isn't as long. Whereas with the Taken King, they knew that there was no
going to be nothing else.
Time, so the Taken War was fucking long. Yeah,
sure, but I think there's a lot of replay value because I still stand by like when they first kind of announced Destiny and it's going to be this evolving world and all of these things happen and you get to see the fallout of that. Like, I feel like they nailed that because it's like the Taken War really felt like here's what happened as a result, and the world never was the same afterwards. And I feel like they've never really captured that since then. Like I
don't think like the Dreaming City, like
but it's all still contained to the Dreaming City, right? With the 3-week cycle.
Right.
I will say this is what disappointed me about the Witch Queen campaign is you have these Lucent Hive, but they kind of just stay in the throne world. And I was I was hoping for so much more besides the battlegrounds. Like they're not. I thought they would come out and be like a plague amount of like across the galaxy, where it's like, wait, why are they on Earth? And now they've taken over the moon. Like
they've changed some public event bosses to be tormentors now in other places.
Oh, really?
Cool. So you're saying Lightfall is the best campaign? Is that what I'm getting?
So true.
They did it for final
no, but it's just like in terms of like
Lightfall's
evolving
better than the majority of the campaigns in Destiny anyway. It's just like if you actually compared what you got and the missions and even the story is better than some of the other stories we've had. Like
sure,
but it's definitely the most
expansion. Like which is better, Beyond Light or Lightfall?
In terms of like
just
campaign
everything,
as a whole or
package,
story?
As a whole package.
Like expansion or campaign? Oh,
just as a whole.
That's a good question. I think Beyond Light just barely edges it for me because I liked Europa and exploring Europa a lot more than I did.
I like Europa a lot too. And then post game with Clovis and everything.
But the main thing with that is we had no fucking weapons.
Yeah, I know, and that was the start of sunsetting, right? So it's like that's a good question. That's always going to be like, how do you I was complaining about the Pathfinder thing, but it's like, is that really part of final shape, or is that just a quality of life thing, right?
Yeah.
Weapon sunsetting was a part of Beyond Light, And I think some people are always going to kind of consider that
associate the two.
Right. Even though it's not really fair to do that. Right. It's like, so it's kind of like, Shadowkeep was also when we got champions for the first time.
Mission-wise,
I hate Shadowkeep
mission-wise
so much,
campaign, I would say that Lightfall is better than Shadowkeep and Beyond Light in terms of
everything's better than Shadowkeep. Shadowkeep is such a piece. I actually, when I am like mentally going through my list of like expansions that come out, I'm always like, oh yeah, Forsaken, and then it went to Beyond Light, and then I'm like, oh wait, Shadowkeep exists. I forgot that happened.
For me, the first mission, the pyramid reveal was really cool, and the amount of eager excitement going into the when you go into it in the final mission, that was really cool. Everything
was really cool.
But I was losing my mind when it was like, wait, we're going in the fucking pyramid. Like, we're going in the pyramid ship. That is so cool.
Right. And everything is leading up to going into it. And then that cutscene at the end, too, now knowing what we know about the Witness.
We are your salvation.
Yeah, the male EXO voice for that cutscene is amazing. The reverb that comes from from the robot when he says salvation is cool. But yeah, other than that, everything else is shit.
I think for me, in terms of let's say story campaign, Final Shape, Forsaken, Witch Queen is my top 3.
Okay, that's fair.
Personally. Yeah, that's my personal take.
Yeah, and I'm sure in the coming weeks there's going to be more secret stuff that comes out. Like I don't think Final Shape is done.
Yeah, that's true.
Echoes has started, and we can talk about Echoes at a later time. But I'm assuming we're still going to get a few more kind of secrets and reveals and stuff for Final Shape, because they always do that, right? Stuff kind of slowly rolls out. We'll get another exotic or something, we'll see how it goes. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I also have to talk about this is just a weird personal thing. I used Red Death almost
all the
exclusively.
Time. Yeah, so good.
I already
Best
have
gun ever.
I already have 6,000 kills with it. Because I just it feels good, and it's so glad that I can finally
so good.
Crimson is now just this POS that can sit. Yeah, Crimson sucks. Red Death it just feels so good. It
the entirety of Legendary. Entirety of Legendary campaign. I was using Red Death. It was so good because the little heal thing.
Sunshot's good too, but
Sunshot is crazy.
It's gonna get slapped soon.
It's gotta, because it's just everyone uses it in every raid because it's just the ultimate ad clear. That or Graviton Lance, right? It's just whatever ice cream flavor you want that day. Do you want purple or red? But no one uses Risk Runner, and you know it.
Risk Runner.
That's why I said poor Risk Runner, because you have to
do
something.
The other elemental thing. Yeah,
you have to do something to proc it to be able to chain kills.
Right.
Whereas these other two you don't. So
Risk Runner was awesome in Scourge of the Past and stuff when the Fallen were
yeah, but now we've got what's that gun that when you run it charges?
Oh, the Centrifuge. Yeah,
that does.
What's that one? Did I miss that?
Does
one? That's the Season of the Plunder
one. Runner does essentially nearly, but you don't have to get hurt by arc to do it.
Right.
You just have to run.
That season was weird.
Yeah. I liked that activity, the whole boarding a pirate ship and taking them down from the inside.
The whole pirate thing was just
it didn't. I didn't like the aesthetic, but I liked that activity. It felt different. It felt like a strike, but it was it was a 6-man activity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was kind of a cool you're using cannons and shooting stuff. It was different.
I like pirate music, pirate aesthetic. No.
Yeah, it didn't.
The soundtrack for that. Banging.
Yeah.
Everything else.
I missed the coil already, man. The coil was so good.
Coil was. This new seasonal activity's pretty okay.
It's not the coil though.
It's not the coil.
We'll talk about that later.
But all right.
Anyways, thank you all for watching, hopping on this stream. Thank you guys for listening.
For so long.
Oh my goodness, I'm going to cut this down significantly.
Oh my God, we've been live for 3 hours. That's awesome.
Yeah, this is not going to be a 3-hour episode when it is live on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, whatever. But if you're watching this live on Twitch, thanks for sticking around and listening. Thank you, Map and Rob, as always, for talking with me for 3 whole hours. This has been great. And we'll see you guys next time.
You can put this voice recording away and go on with your life, because you and I both know you'd have me yapping in your ear for the rest of your days.
Want to further the discussion? Get in touch with us at any of our Twitter handles. all of which can be found in our podcast description.